stick to a deadline or not. But
exactly. I mean, the amount of times we've just clicked a button and gone live midway through.
Yeah, through a sentence. That's just now, which we are now live.
We're now live. Oh wow,
we are now live. Yes,
throw it in at the deep end.
Yeah, just sneak it in quietly.
You really did.
Yeah.
So Shawn, you are looking a bit different tonight, Shawn. You're looking a little bit more like Grant Alexander.
I'm looking at the YouTube thumbnail right now, and I went, "That's not me," so I didn't click on it. I'll get you guys a picture. Don't worry.
Yes, that would be it'd be good if you could, and maybe a couple so we can do the audio ad as well. A couple will do because we don't need the pre-show ad that up on Instagram. So, but one for the audio and one for the thumbnail, so I can correct that. For those that are watching who just tuned in, wondering why we haven't got Shawn Brown from Kids Invent Stuff, we've just had a panicked sort of hour. Had a message from Shawn. Unfortunately, he's not very well, and
nothing to worry about.
Nothing to worry about. No, it's not COVID. He was kind of hoping to do it, but kind of illness. He was fighting his illness, but the illness has won. So we've postponed.
That is a really, really, really horrible phrase for that. He's a bit poorly, and he's bowing out for tonight.
He's going to be okay, but he's due to be filming tomorrow. And obviously filming with Kids Event Stuff is rather
time
they have very it's time constrained, so he needs an early night, not a 3-hour waffle,
potentially unending waffle with us.
And he needs to save his voice as well, so
we're gonna drag him back on properly when he's feeling a bit better.
Yes. And Grant has graciously agreed to step in and
at incredibly short notice.
Place.
So thank you very much for that, Grant.
No problem.
Yeah. Partway through a dog walk.
Well, I actually, when you posted the message, I went, well, I better go walk the dog now. Just in case you need me, I wanted to make sure I walk the dog before I get locked in the podcasting basement, and my wife will be stuck with the kid upstairs, and
a dog who needs a walk, and
But the man has got a beer. That's the main thing.
Yeah, and we are very thankful. And when we meet up in person, I'll buy you a pint, particularly if it's in the UK, a proper pint.
It's always nice when you take a detour.
Very nice. Yeah. And Andy, you say proper pint, but Grant's in that little shop above
the place, the kind of Commonwealth, selling the Commonwealth. But do they have proper pints? Yeah, warm ale. Yeah.
You can. We have traditional British pubs that you can go to. I don't know. It depends on the beer, on what temperature I want it served at. The worse the beer, the colder it needs to be.
Just to take the edge off.
Yeah. Like if you're drinking Coors Light, you want it to be Sub-Zero. Right? If you're drinking something good, you want it to be warmer.
That's fair.
I mean, that's very true. I mean, you've got to have the right temperature for the right tipple, haven't you? Because get it wrong and it just doesn't taste right. Yeah, I mean, lager needs to be cold. Cider, ideally, I think. I don't know. It depends on the type of cider.
Depends on the cider. Yeah.
I had hot cider in the middle of winter. Hot alcoholic cider in the middle of winter, and it was actually really good.
We over here you can get demijohns of scrumpy, so it's really cloudy. There's still bits in it, and you just get it in a big 5-litre glass jug, basically.
Has to be glass because otherwise it eats through anything else. Yeah.
Pretty much. Anything that contain it. But you can get them just in the local supermarket. And a few years ago, we discovered that quite often, if you time it right, they have that on offer, and then they also have the mulling spices for doing mulled wine. So if you do mulled cider, it is absolutely glorious. Coming up to winter, when all the nights are drawing in, you're getting a bit too chilly, you just want to wrap up nice big stonking mug of hot spiced cider, and it is glorious.
That sounds.
See, I used to like a nice glühwein. I've been to Austria a few
Bless you.
times, and they make the most glorious, mulled wine. And I've tried making mulled wine at home, and it's just never been the same. But yeah, nice Glühwein. Particularly, I mean, if you're halfway up a mountain, you haven't done a bit of skiing, it's lunchtime. Yeah, a bit of Glühwein just to warm you up and get you kind of ready for the black runs in the afternoon is a nice way to do things. But never quite managed to get the flavours the same. Yeah, black runs. I'm crossing over them. Yeah, I've never good enough for black runs.
Perpendicular, I'm guessing.
Yeah. With great fear and trepidation and wobbling knees. Yeah.
Yeah, I went skiing. I went skiing once in my life, and there was like a bunny hill, and beside the bunny hill was like the starter hill, right? And so I went down the bunny hill once, and I was like, I could probably go to the next hill up, right? That has a little bit of shape to it, that isn't perfectly flat. And I fell, and a ski came off the binding and went down the hill, and then I had to walk down the rest of the hill, and I went, this isn't for me. This just isn't for me.
My wife used to go skiing fairly regularly when she was a bit younger, and she'd quite often just take on all the black runs and stuff. But then I've never done skiing or snowboarding, but I used to do a lot of rollerblading. So there's then this kind of like bit of animosity between the two of us, between like the kind of the road version of skiing versus the snow version of rollerblading. Yeah. Never the two worlds shall meet.
If you fall over on snow, it hurts less.
Yeah, but you don't tend to be rolling downhill on the rollerblades.
Yeah,
it's a bit flatter.
The nice thing about skiing is that they take you up the hill, though.
True, that's true.
Yeah,
get a nice sit down on the way up.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember the first time I went skiing. It was at university, and there was my martial arts instructor was doing a PhD in heart valve technology, so kind of replacement heart valves. So they tend to be porcine, sort of genetically modified pigs, because the heart's about the same size as a human.
I think we might have just lost you a bit then, Andy. Or I did.
Yep.
Yeah.
I did too. I always assume it's my internet.
No, I tell you what it is. I forgot to plug my cable in. I'm back on the Wi-Fi. I may have to go and get my cable and just plug that in, because otherwise it's going to happen again and again and again, isn't it?
It is a predictable dropout for yours, I think.
Yeah. Tell you what, you two talk amongst yourselves for 30 seconds. I will go and get I'll just mute myself and go and get my cable. It should be 30
I'll
seconds.
take this opportunity to tell everyone who I am.
Oh,
how about that?
I mean, it's the sensible thing to do, but we always just like get half an hour in and then go, oh yeah, so who are you?
Right. Usually you guys have people on here that everyone already knows. And in this case, I think it's a little bit different, and I'm not everyone people know. So I'm Grant Alexander, or the Grant Alexander, for people searching for me online. I like the color orange, and that's all you got to know. But I do YouTube videos and Instagram, and I make things. And I've been doing the YouTube thing for about almost 3 years now. And Instagram is about the same time, but I've been, on and off making things my whole life. I spent a lot of time working at a hobby shop when I was in high school, where we sold like models, like car models and boat models and planes and remote controlled sailboats and cars. And I used to do racing and stuff like that. But and then as you grow up, things change and what you want to make changes. And I started making things that, I don't know, had more use to them. I don't know why, but as I got older, I was like, I can't just be making little car models, even though I loved doing it. They just didn't, I needed to be more productive with my time.
It's a good thing to do, then.
Yeah. That's me. I don't know. Hi, everyone in the chat, by the way.
Sorry, we just got to get those technical difficulties balancing out. We've got a little bit of wobbling from Andy still. A bit of
I'll sit very still.
Going on there.
Yeah, because everything sort of moved. That's because I've been trying to panic around instead of setting up properly. I was panicking around trying to make sure we get a guest. Yeah.
Right, so
Hey, I was saying the first time I went skiing at university.
Yes.
So my martial arts instructor was doing heart valve replacement technology research. So he and one of his research partners were invited to talk at a heart surgeons conference, which was scheduled to take place in Val d'Isère in Switzerland, or France. It's right on the border. You fly into Switzerland anyway, and all the conferences started at 4:30 in the afternoon. The lifts closed at 4:00, so it was like, So he got paid to go. So a couple of others, there was about 4 or 5 of us, sort of joined him for a sort of cheap holiday in Val d'Isère and learned to ski. But the first day, we spent the morning on kind of essentially nothing more than a field with a slight slope, learning how to snowplow. And in the afternoon, we were free to kind of sort of do whatever we wanted and go our own. I can remember that we were Dave and I, we kind of went, right, okay, well let's go up to the first tow bar, and we went up the first tow bar and we got to the top, and there was kind of a bit of quite a sudden change from the sort of flat at the top of the tow bar to sort of down this hill, and we were stood at the top of it. He was early 20s. I was I was 21, I think I was, and it was like we were literally petrified of going over this sort of slope because we just hadn't anything like it. And we stood there. I mean, he had something like 7 black belts in martial arts, 7 different ones. And this tiny little kid, must have been about 5, came off the sort of the tow bar, looked behind him and said, "Oui, papa," and then just dived off this slope. And we looked at each other and went, well, we've got to go now, haven't we? Because like, if he can do that, he'd probably been brought up on skis. It was just like he'd probably been skiing before he was even walking. So we just had to go for it, and we survived. It was quite a fun trip. I can still remember that though. This guy was. He was super tough. Yeah, he was like not the kind of guy to mess around with in any way. He got mugged a couple of times, unsuccessfully. He was a big guy. He was 6'2", I think, 6'3". So it was like, I can still remember that. That was a fun trip. So you don't instruct. Have you mentioned the fact that you're a podcast host as well, Grant?
I didn't, because I suck at introducing myself.
We didn't really introduce you properly either, so
that's okay.
No, we never introduce our guests properly. Yeah, we don't. We just don't. It's not part of it because it's like Waffle.
Straight in the deep end. See you flounder.
Right. Well, so I do have a podcast. It's called Clamp, the Creating, Living, and Making podcast. Don't call it the Clamp podcast because that's like calling it a PIN number or an ATM machine. It's just Clamp. But if you search for Clamp,
redundancies department.
Yeah. If you search for Clamp, you won't find it. So if you search for Clamp Podcast, you probably will.
And it just upsets you even more.
Yeah, it does. But I see we've got some new people in the chat.
Yeah, chat is slowly filling up. So
I'm just wondering though if Alan might have possibly created his own paradox, because now if we talk about not talking about Alan, is that now talking about Alan or not talking about Alan? Ooh.
Yeah, I don't know.
We won't talk about him.
I don't know. He doesn't have a podcast, so it doesn't matter.
Ooh.
Shots fired.
Shots fired.
I was on the
we just said quantum physics.
I got my very first shout out on that podcast. So that was a long time ago in a faraway galaxy.
It was a good podcast while it lasted.
It was.
I enjoyed it.
It went downhill very, very rapidly just as I kind of jumped in, sort of stand-in guest as an episode, and then they basically announced, "Oh yeah, we're getting rid of it now." So, sorry to anyone who still enjoyed listening to it.
What podcast?
Oh, crikey.
So I was going to say we normally have stuff planned. We don't normally have stuff planned, but
We
are
kind of
just
normally
on
have a
the
plan.
back foot. Well,
But
we
not
have a
necessarily
plan
planned. Yeah.
yeah, of like, let's talk to the guest about something we've been thinking about, talking about to the guest all week about.
Yeah. Because we did kind of have a plan with Shawn. For the benefit, again, for those latecomers, Shawn's not very well. It could be okay, but better for him to be resting than to be waffling away for potentially several hours when he's due to be filming tomorrow. We were going to kind of...
What we're saying is we've taken the collective decision to make sure that the Kids Invent stuff is the priority and not dragging him on here,
Yes.
Just
to our
taking one
benevolence.
for the team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the two.
And we're scared of Ruth.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, she would definitely beat us up next week when she's on.
Yes.
Oh yeah, what episode is this one?
This is 19 we're on today.
19.
And 20 is going to be our first group chat. So more than just one guest.
Mm.
So
It's exciting.
It's going to be carnage because me and Andy already talk over each other quite a lot.
Actually, surprisingly, I don't find you guys do too bad. Unless you edit the audio version to take it out, then
Nope.
no, you guys do a good job.
Not at all. Nope at all. There's no, for the benefit of, again, those listening, there is no editing. So if you're listening to the audio podcast later in the week, rather than
we could only
watching
apologise.
live, we can apologise, but you get exactly the same experience without the visuals. So audio-wise, it's exactly the same.
For those watching, let's talk about something you can see. Because I always love it when you go down a rabbit hole about things that you can look at in an audio medium. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
It's my favorite trope.
Well, Andy's often very sensible and explains all the random crap that I hold up against the camera.
It is quite. I mean, there's been a few podcasts where they kind of one of the. I mean, Making It does do it every now and again, don't they? And kind of Bob has to sort of step in and go, for those listening rather than watching, because it's an audio podcast, Jimmy.
I did wonder if you were going to name drop Jimmy then.
When the shoe fits.
Well, yeah, I think he is the most guilty, and I think he would agree with that.
He's just the most agreeable of the three as well, I think.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean,
Is that me embracing Jimmy there?
yeah, he's a nice chap.
I mean, in fairness, I've met Bob and Jimmy, and they are both lucky blokes.
I've only
David
met
didn't
Jimmy.
want to slum it at the Mega Central, so he didn't get to meet me, unfortunately. The other two did.
That's his loss. His loss.
Exactly.
Well. So apparently, Alan says that he edited out all of the curse words from their podcast. And I just wonder, is that because Irish curse words aren't the same? Is that...
I think that means that originally the podcasts were about 4.5 hours long. They narrowed them down to an hour.
Oh, makes sense.
So I think what Alan actually did with that podcast is just edited all the Nate bits out. So it's just him and Johnny swearing.
That would have been a better podcast.
Yeah. Oh, crikey.
Really? I mean, I totally agree, Andy.
Yeah.
So,
And I've not even been drinking. I'm still in the water. Yeah.
Before the show started, we were talking a little bit about my week.
Yeah.
And what happened.
Tell us about your week. I was just going to say, tell us about your week.
So I went to I'm from Canada, for those who don't know. I live in the great country of Canada with all of its prepaid healthcare and all that. And I went down to the States this past weekend to join the high caliber craftsman at his shop in Virginia to learn how to do a little bit of blacksmithing. And I also got to do some wood turning at the same time for the first time ever. So
Oh, cool.
Very cool.
That was exciting, and then I got to learn 2 new skills while I was there. But it was a shit show, to say the least, on getting there and getting back. So the border between Canada and the US was closed for a long time because of COVID, understandably. And then Canada in the summer, while there was like a big drop in COVID cases, which obviously has gone away now, but it happened. There's at one point we're all getting vaccines and everything's looking great. Canada reopened the border. And the US said, no. You guys with your high vaccination rates and low case counts can't come into our country. And so they never reopened the land border. You can still fly because if you're rich, you can do anything you want. I share a country with Pat Lapp. Yeah, Pat's awesome. He actually only lives about 2 to 3 hours away from me. So I was like, the land border is open for business, is what they say, because they're Americans or capitalists. That all they care about is business.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going to drive down. This is a YouTube related thing. I'm filming a video. I'm going to drive down. I'm going to bring my tiny trailer. It's going to be an awesome weekend. Boom. I'm doing it. Right. I got turned around at the border. I just got there. I got turned around. It just like, they just said, no, that's not an essential reason. I was like, but it's open for business and this is business. And they're like, and what's your job? And I'm like, well, I'm an investigator for national defense and the Canadian Armed Forces. And they're like, right. And this is not, what are you going down there? I'm like, and my side job is, they're like, I don't care. Go away. They were nice about it. Way much nicer than that. But they basically said, I tried, but you can't come. So I drove back across up to it was only about an hour to the border. So I wasn't too concerned. I know that's half your country, but for me, an hour, it's not too bad.
An hour traveling for me gets me about 25 miles.
Yeah.
I'm not joking.
So, yeah. So I had said I knew that was going to be a possibility, that America wasn't going to reopen the border, the land border, and I'd have to fly. So I drove home, booked a flight, got on the flight the next day, needed to get a COVID test to get on the flight, fly down. That seemed okay. It actually went well. I got a flight. Everything seemed fine. Went to the weekend. Everything was fine. But I find out when I get down there, I'd booked a COVID test to get back. And there's 2 different types. Well, there's more than 2, but there's 2 main types of COVID tests: an antigen test and a PCR test. The antigen test is like 15 minutes, and boom, you're good to go. And the PCR, polymer chain reaction test, I believe it's called, takes, according to the test I got down while I was in Virginia, takes 5 days.
We can get our results from those in 24 hours.
Yeah. So we'll get to that. There's you obviously, in order to get back across the border, Canada requires a PCR test. It doesn't matter if it's positive or negative. Because I'm a Canadian, they'll let me in with a negative test. But
and they'll look after you as well.
They'll just say you have to quarantine, right? That's what they want. They want guaranteed whether or not I have COVID. And it's not guaranteed because I was only there for like 72 hours. But it needs to be taken within 72 hours of your trip, of your return. So everywhere I went, it was just, everything was like, because they're spiking with their Delta, everything was 2 to 5 days. There's like ones that said 1 to 2 days, but we went and tried that. It didn't work. Yeah, he's telling the story. Morley's up in here. Morley was the nice one, and we'll find out why. So I couldn't get a test results back, but I found out that I was flying out of Norfolk, Virginia, and I was going to another U.S. city, Newark, New Jersey. And in Newark, they have 1 hour PCR testing. So they obviously have like a lab on the spot, and it's it's like a big international airport that does a lot of Canada, like, so it's only there for Canada, right? And I went, great, I'm going there. I'll go get the test there. I've got a 5-hour layover. That's more than enough time to get the test, right? I can even like wait out the clock to see if my other test results will come back and get it at the last minute. I get to the airport, and I'm so used to walking up into an airport terminal, and there's people there, and you talk to the people. But in the Norfolk airport, and I'm sure it's the same in other airports, you walk up and they say, there's a computer. Enter your stuff in the computer. And they just point at a computer screen. And I go, right, I need to talk to someone. They're like, no, enter your stuff. And I'm like, okay, I enter my stuff. They won't let me in. They won't let me take the first leg of my flight because I don't have the test results yet. And I'm like, but I'm not going to Canada yet. I'm going to Newark, New Jersey. Like, it's a domestic flight. Let me on. And they're like, no, you just can't. So I was like, can I buy a ticket from Norfolk to Newark and get on the plane? Yes, you can. And I was like, okay, well, I'm kind of stuck here. There's not much else I can do. I get on they don't sell tickets there. That's the other crazy thing. So you walk up, there's only computer screens. You can't buy tickets there. You have to phone. So I phone, and the first thing I try to do is go like, can you just split up my journey into 2 trips? Mm-hmm. Well, the person says, I can't, but maybe my boss can. Let me go put you on hold for a little bit. So I'm on hold for 15 minutes waiting for my boss. And then in this 15 minutes is when I'm texting Morley saying, hey, Morley, don't leave until I message you because I'm totally effed right now. The 15 minutes come back and they go, no, there's nothing you can do because you bought it on a third-party Expedia site. You didn't buy it through us, so we can't help you. And I went, okay, great. So I guess sell me a ticket. So they ask the 1,000 questions they need to ask over the phone, even though they have all the information clearly because I was already on a flight. But they ask all the things. I have to pull out my password, give them like the number off my password, everything. They finally sell me the thing after 45 minutes on the phone. And I run up to press the little digits, the 5-digit code that logs me in to get a ticket and a boarding pass. And it just starts flashing red. And I go, what's going on here? Right? And a different person, because it's been so long, there's been a shift change. A different person comes over who doesn't know my whole story and what's happened so far. Just says, you needed to be here 30 minutes before to check in. That's all she says. And I go, they just sold me this ticket. And she goes, well, you need to be 30 minutes before. And I said, what? It was very, Morley that is exactly the text I sent him. So they wouldn't let me on the plane. Luckily, I was still on the phone with the United Airlines. And I said, they're like, cancel this. They're not letting me on the plane. So I didn't get charged that $200 American flight to be part of the flight that I've already to be sitting in the seat that I would have already sat in, but whatever. Then I just go, you know what? I'm going to figure something out. And I text Morley. Morley was driving back to Toronto, which is about 5 hours away from where I live. And the whole trip for him is like a 12-hour drive. So he picks me up. We drive 6 hours, stop in a place, get a hotel room, drive another 6 hours, stop at Niagara Falls. There's 3 1-hour testing places in Niagara Falls. They're literally like shipping containers dropped in a parking lot. Mm-hmm. And this is all they do. And it's like you can see the bridge to cross over to Canada right there. And so we get the test, but everything was working against me. Morley and I get our text messages saying you got test results. Well, I get an email. He gets a text message and an email, which I find strange. Anyways, it says you have to input your phone number and your date of birth to get your results. So I input my phone number and my date of birth, and it goes, we can't verify your identity. I'm like, what? So I'm like, oh, I must have typed something wrong. So I try it again. I try it like 17 times. And I get Morley to look at it and I go, Morley, am I delusional? And I say, these are the numbers I'm trying to put in. And he's like, you must have put it in wrong. But when you sign up for this website, you have to enter your phone number in twice. And it's one of those you have to enter it in twice. So I apparently screwed up my phone number twice, entering it in
the same
way. And so luckily we went back to there and they asked us different security, like, what's your data? Like, they asked all the other questions. They recognized me and Morley and got me my test results, and it was negative, and I was able to cross the border, no problem. But It was just
to freedom.
Right. It's just like, I don't know if America wanted to keep me or if Canada didn't want me back. I don't know. Because America in the first place, right, but they didn't want me to get in the first place. And then when I was there, they were like, you can't leave. Yeah. And Morley in the chat just said the rapid PCR test businesses are going to be everywhere soon. And guess where they're going to be this week in Virginia, in the airport. There is going to be, it's opening up there now, a rapid PCR 1 hour PCR test is going to be opening up in the airport. But I was a week too early.
I mean, that's seems to have been the case with like everyone that we've spoken to for anything like this. Like even with Caro from Prop Shop Berlin, who came over to the UK not too long ago, just as we were changing the law. So she was flying over on a Friday, and they changed the requirements in the UK on the following Monday. So she was like 3 days out for whether or not she'd need to spend a couple of €100 on getting tests, or whether she could just turn up and get a free one over here, or things like that. It's just loads of little stupid knock-on things like that seems to just be.
And they don't matter if you're rich. It doesn't matter. No. But most of us aren't. So it really, like, the land. If I'd been able to drive, it would have been about $200 all told, my trip, right? Beyond, like, beer, gas, like the travel part. Because I wasn't able to drive, and then I had to drive back, it ended up being about $1,500. Yeah.
It's a blacksmithing and turning lesson.
Yeah. It made a really nice cleaver though. It was definitely worth it. If I had known what was going to happen, I would have planned differently.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I would have gone for a longer period of time so that I could have got the test results, and I would have done a little more research on how long they take to come back,
or typed your phone number incorrectly, or
well, maybe not. I probably would have still screwed that part up. But I've had this phone number since I was in high school. Like, there's no way I put it in wrong. Like, I don't know how
to get it in wrong twice as well. It's not going to be in the same way. There's obviously some other error correction in there.
The other thing that's crazy is when they do the test, they ask you these confirmation questions. One of them should goddamn be your cell phone, because they have it. And they ask you, like, your date of birth. They ask you, like, 5 different questions. But they don't ask me what my cell phone number was. Anyways, lessons learned.
Maybe they have on their screen saying cell phone number incorrect. Yeah, not enough digits or something.
Well,
so they already knew it was dodgy.
Yeah. Well, I put like a 6 at the end. But the only way I can think I did this is that, like, my phone number starts with 6. So it's like I must have misclicked. But then why would I put another 6 at the end? I don't.
Yeah, you could imagine putting a 6 on one line but not on the second, unless you've copied and pasted from one down to the next or something. But
well, why would I? I was on my phone. Like, copying and pasting on your phone is not
more hassle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's never easy.
No.
So, but you had a good week. I mean, we've already sort of discussed prior to sort of coming live that you don't want to tell us too much about the events that took place. I mean, obviously there've been some fairly heavy documentation on Instagram, particularly of some of the things taking place, which you've done quite well, I believe, from reels.
I've never had a reel explode like this, so let me just go pop open, because the numbers are changing so fast. I need to look at the number right now. It is currently sitting at 156,000 views.
Oh, wow.
The reel I posted before that, which I actually edited and did stuff to try and make it good, got 1,000. So it only got 155,000 more views. That's not that many.
And it's still going,
Yeah. Well, it's still going.
150,000 views, $1,500. I mean, that's quite a good investment. Yeah, it's something you get. I get messages about stuff like that every now and again on Instagram. Paying for views. So.
Well, yeah. I guess if you look at that, like, this whole weekend, I got my best performing Instagram post ever. So totally worth it.
Gotta be worth it for the flames and the smoke. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably got like lung cancer according to half the comments, but I don't know. I'm sure it's like I used to smoke, so I'm guaranteeing the smoke coming off of fresh piece of maple is way better than whatever I was putting into my lungs before.
Absolutely, without question.
You were outside, essentially outside. I mean, you were in a covered forge, but there were no walls. Well, there was one wall on the reverse side. So.
Like the problem is, so Morley was filming that for me, and he was standing where the wind was coming from. So the only place I could stand to get the camera shot I wanted, knowing where he was where the smoke. Everyone's like, "Why did you stand there?" I'm like, "Well, that's just where it worked out. I needed to be there to get the good camera shot."
The things we do for kind of shots, isn't it? Yeah. I'm going to stand in the most awkward place. I'm going to stand really awkwardly. I'm going to have to sort of squeeze an expensive camera into a place where it's just about ready to fall over, or in the middle of smoke. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to like work like this, where I'm like reaching over top of the camera. It's super on the bandsaw, especially. It's super awkward, I find.
Yeah, I don't like you lot enough for that. I just don't bother filming stuff.
Yeah. But how are you going to get your 156,000 views?
That's true. That is very true. I'll just have to switch over to OnlyFans or something.
Fair enough.
Again, I thought you closed that account.
I can reopen it for you, Andy.
All right.
Lifetime membership. I was disappointed when OnlyFans. Yeah.
What was that Chris said the other day about people loving a hairy cleavage or something like that? So that's the second time I've caught Grant just while he was taking a swig of his drink and anybody spit it out.
Yeah, the first one was really close to having a spit take. It was really close. And Andy, I don't even think heard the joke. And then so it almost had a double like spit take. Oh, that was good. Looks like we're losing some people already.
Yeah, Neil's got an early start, so
yeah.
It's we catch people later. They know it's potentially for a long haul, so they kind of sort of tend to watch her a bit, and then kind of people have to sleep.
I was going to say apparently people have got lives.
Yeah. We'll do better as a podcast when sort of people start commuting more again. But going back to the weekend, so obviously you're going to discuss more about the weekend in a forthcoming episode of Clamp.
Yes,
because obviously Morley is one of your co-hosts who is also there.
Yes, and
Adam, or wasn't. Yeah, I mean, just some excuse about being in Australia.
Yeah. Well, they're kind of on lockdown, so I don't even know if, regardless of the status of his PCR test, I don't think he'd be able to get out.
No, and they can't. I was talking with Dan Gamble last night, and they can't even go 15 kilometers at the moment. Mm-hmm. They really are tightly locked down.
It's been really quite a while, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, for Adam, it's really been unfortunate because he was really starting to go to the gym like every single day, and his gym is in a different county but it's within the 15, it's the closer, you know what I mean? Like it's just a ridiculous the way that like they've drawn a line in the border.
So
yeah. So he just it's frustrating to hear, but also I don't know. I had to. There's a whole bunch of other things that went wrong in the trip, but one of them is I went to the airport with my pocket knife still on my keychain.
Oh no!
Because I carry a Swiss Army knife everywhere, and domestically I can fly with a Swiss Army knife. So if I'm flying within Canada, I can fly with a Swiss Army knife, no problem. And domestically within the States, you can as well. No one believes me, but it's true. Most people don't even believe me in Canada that you can do it. But in the when I was up in the Yukon, they actually had a thing showing you the blade length you could bring on like a mat by security. so that you could deposit your blades that were too long.
I mean, to be fair, the Yukon's barely civilization, though, isn't it?
Fair. Well, that's when you're hunting and fishing to live. You carry a knife.
A knife is essential.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a tool.
So that's where I found out that I could do it, because I by accident did it that time, and just got on the plane and went, well, I'm going to throw it in the thing and see what happens, and like in the little tray, and it went through, and they had no problem.
Did they not sort of question you and ask where the bigger knife was? You know, something more useful when you're out there.
No, they didn't. They knew. They could tell. I'm sure they could see all like the fact that I was going there for work. Yeah. So, but if you're going internationally, you can't bring it. So I had my mask on, and I'm like, this is like a gift I got from my dad when I was a kid. So it's not like a Swiss Army knife that I want to get rid of.
Yeah.
So what am I going to do? And I'm thinking to myself, like, can I just strategically place it somewhere outside that I can tell my wife where it is? Like, can I mail it? So I'm like running around looking for a post office, because I've seen before where there's like mailers right by security, so you can mail it. But in the Ottawa airport, there isn't one of those. So I'm running around, and then I'm starting to like hyperventilate because I'm wearing a mask, and it was a brand new mask because the mask I normally wear has vents, and I know you're not supposed to have vents, but whatever. It's like an RZ mask, and that's what I normally wear to go to the beer store, which is the only place I go. And they don't seem to care. But I knew on the plane, it specifically says you can't wear ones with vents. So I had to buy a brand new mask. And it was like constantly on my face, and I was just like, I don't know how people do this all day long wearing one of these, but I know there's probably better masks, and I just had to, whichever one I got at Walmart.
Well, if you're running around, people don't generally run around in their masks when they're wearing them all day.
You can get like sports masks though for exercising in, because if I were going to the gym, I'd be wearing a mask. That's for damn sure. Like I'm wearing a mask everywhere now. Like, I think I'm going to wear a mask the rest of my life. It's the best. They can't see how angry I am based on my face.
That and everyone's got used to smiling with just your eyes now as well. So trying to do your mouth and face and
no, I wear a mask, sunglasses, and a hat. Nobody sees anything from me, and I just and I'll wear headphones too. And then I can walk anywhere and ignore anyone I want. It's great.
Yep.
Anyways, in the end, I left it at Lost and Found. And then I had to pay. And then because of my trip got screwed up, and I wasn't coming back through the airport, I ended up having to pay. It ended up being $16 to keep my knife there for the amount of time I had to keep it there.
If you at least managed to get it back, though.
Oh, yes, I managed to get it back. That was the nice thing. I was very afraid because I'd forgotten to call them to see if I could extend it, because I prepaid for the amount of days because I knew when I was going to come back through the airport. And then with all the other stuff of not being able to get on the plane, I forgot. But luckily they hadn't thrown it out, because if it was luggage, they would have. But because it was small, they didn't. This is what they told me on the phone. I don't know.
They probably appreciated the sentimental value of it as well. Or at least you'd like to see the good in them.
I'd like to. They had no clue what it was. I just dropped off a knife.
True.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have like a little section of knives.
Oh, collection. Yeah, they throw them away, and then kind of, oh look, anyone want to buy a knife?
They took your spanner, Alan.
Yeah, it make a central. Some of the Irish lads bought some stuff, and when all trying to get back across the island, poor Alan got his spanner taken off him.
Wow.
And he's still not forgiven us English for letting that happen.
Oh, well, I'm sure there's more things that he's mad at the English for.
Yeah, I mean the spanner was 18 inches long. Yeah, it's like a 32mm spanner with a spike on the end. Yeah, I mean. It wasn't like you. It wasn't like you. One of those little miniature King Dick sort of adjustable spanners. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he could have like smuggled it internally. Certainly not without presenting.
Yeah. For the benefit of the audio listeners, Alan's just said he's not like he was going to disconnect the wing with an adjustable.
You could do anything with an adjustable. Anything. Or I find actually nothing. I absolutely hate them, but you know.
I saw a fantastic picture the other day of it was like a trailer being coupled up to a car, and the tow ball had come off, so they just put an adjustable spanner in through the rings. But
nice.
they'd put the thing on it saying you can always use an adjustable hammer to fix everything. So now I'm going to be calling them adjustable hammers from now on.
I like it.
Yes, Stanley do a nice adjustable that works nicely and actually sort of holds. I mean, I've got several adjustable spanners, and some of them are not great. But my youngest was given for her 8th birthday was given a Stanley adjustable, which is really quite nice. It's strong enough you can bash things with as well.
I find them really good at making circles. Like if you got a hex nut that you want to be circular, use an adjustable, and you'll get there no problem.
It's a nut lathe, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just purely for rounding the fastener over at the right time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean that's another fellow Canadian, the YouTuber AVE. That's his thing, because he's does a lot of work with mining and stuff. So they have a particular miner's adjustable that has like a hammer section to it. So it is an adjustable wrench and spanner in one. But yeah, he always refers to it as like a Swedish nut lathe, or handful of other more phrases.
I've got a adjustable a Stilson that was my dad's. So yeah, I mean it was in a state when I was a kid. So yeah, it's got to be 70 years old at least. And the back, the sort of the solid part of the head. So if you think about a kind of a Stilson, essentially it's like an F shape, isn't it? A handle going up, and the back of it is bashed where it's just been used as a hammer so much it's actually sort of mushroomed slightly.
Yeah.
Because that's what we did. Yeah, you're trying to sort something out in a car. You don't want to pull yourself back out of the car to go and get a hammer. You just sort of turn your Stilson around and bash it.
Most of my drills have got like marks on the back of them where I've used them for hammering in roll plugs and stuff. You drill the hole, spin the drill around, and then just bash it with the back of the drill to knock the roll plug in.
Yeah, I got to do that better than I use the battery. That's probably the wrong spot.
I used to do that,
especially with lithium.
Yeah. When I worked in the hobby industries, when lithium became commercially available, and it was scary what people did and what happened because they didn't know how to charge them. There's fires all the time. There was fires with NiCads and nickel metal hydrates as well. Like I had a fire start in my house because I don't know, my auto shut off charger didn't auto shut off and just kept charging it. Like the carpet still looks like that in my dad's in my old room in my dad's house. It's still like melted from where the battery decided it didn't want to be a battery anymore. But lithium, it's scary. It's definitely scary.
You mentioned about the charging stuff there. I mean, specifically things like lithium-ion stuff, like 18650 based, that like a lot of the tool batteries use. Obviously, you've got generations of people. People who've been using battery tools for 20 years that were traditionally NiCad batteries, and then mobile phones that were NiCad batteries. So you've got tradies who've been using NiCad professionally for 20 years and all the time told, wait till it's fully completely discharged before you charge it back up, charge it up fully. So then that's ingrained for 20 years, and then you get this like shift over to lithium where it's like, no, it's actually it's not good for it if you discharge it all the way. It's not good to leave it fully charged all the time, and just charge it when you need it. Don't feel like you've always got to wait for it to run flat and then charge it fully. All this kind of like complete polar opposite to everything they've learned for the last 20 years. So then you've got this, first generation of lithium-ion batteries for phones and for tools, where we're just getting absolutely mullered from people. It's like, no, my dad told me this is how you've got to do it. This is the way it's always been.
Or else it'll get a memory.
Yeah. It's like, not anymore.
Hey, so when I worked in the hobby shop, we sold like discharge trays that would discharge, like we use C-size batteries in our remote control cars, and you would just put them in, and either like the cheap ones used light bulbs, like car light bulbs, and the expensive ones used like resistors, and they would just get hot. Giant resistors with fans to keep them like cool. But now it's all like, don't over discharge, don't overcharge, don't, like, I don't know. It's crazy. I don't understand why, but I'm sure there's a physics reason for it.
Absolutely, there is. Yeah. A bit of both. But it's like the just to nerd out on battery technology for a minute. Stuff like the difference between like a trickle charger for something like NiCads or nickel metal hydrides that are just constantly putting in that little bit to just keep them topped off, or just to bring them up slowly. The lithium charging, I always forget which way around it is, but lithium charging works differently in that it has a constant voltage section and then a constant current section.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a two-phase charging setup. So it does the constant current first and allows the voltage to lift up, and then switches to constant voltage and allows it to reduce the amount of current it takes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you can't stick the same voltage of lithium-ion battery onto an old charger, because it can't handle that. All the charge controllers and everything just goes into protection mode and cuts them out. But that is why you can then leave them on the charger and it doesn't degrade them over time. It's because it's got this protection circuit in that keeps the voltage consistent current, or keeps the voltage consistent, and then allows the current to just top itself up when it needs it. So it's a much more smart way of charging. But again, it's that, like,
the nickel metal hydrates would just go, like, if you had a 7.2 volt battery, it was pumping 8.4 volts the whole time.
Yeah, and until the light flashed, and then you just wait until the battery explodes.
Right.
Pretty much.
And that's, so I don't know. I'm sure you guys used to use, because you guys are, I don't know, similar age to me. I know I look very young, but I'm much older than I look. You used to use drills, and they'd get down to the point where they go,
yeah.
And now they just shut off.
Yeah.
You're just like, you're 100%, well, 80% shut off, right? Mm-hmm. And that's because the batteries or the drills, I don't know which one it is. It's got to be the battery.
It depends on the manufacturers.
Of course. The batteries that I have, because they're like, I assume it's in the battery, but they're designed to not go below a certain voltage because it'll kill the battery. Yeah. And the first lithiums didn't have that. And that's where they got really screwed.
So it's interesting, actually, specifically with tools. Again, just because nerdy fanboy type. Milwaukee actually hold the patent for lithium-ion battery technology for tools.
Oh.
And because they pioneered it for tool use. So the TTI branded stuff, so Milwaukee, Rigid, AEG, Ryobi, they are all, the battery technology is, the battery protection circuits are within the batteries. Same for Makita are within the batteries as well. But some of the other tool manufacturers, I can't remember which off the top of my head, but some of the others, the battery protection is actually in the tools itself. So some of the battery adapters that you can get, you can change between manufacturers that just budget to fit. Like, you can quite happily put Makitas and Milwaukees and Rigids, AGs, all that onto pretty much any other tool, because the battery protection is, the cell protection is within the battery pack itself, so it'll just cut off. But if you match them the other way around, they won't, and they'll just go and go and go and go and go, and we'll do that same thing. They'll just keep dropping and dropping and dropping until the cells can't ever be recovered again.
Interesting.
So I nerded out on lithium ions quite a while back.
I
There's your with
believe you.
NICADs. When I was in school, we had accumulators, so literally wet cells, and like for the teacher would have there was a control board, so on the desk you'd have sort of connectors, so you could actually sort of literally wire into the desk, and the teacher could control what you had supplied, or it was accumulators. So if they wanted something portable, it would literally be wet batteries. Between me leaving school and doing my teacher training, which was 8 years, school started using NICAD batteries because there was this great rechargeable battery system that you could then have. But then when I did my sort of teacher training, there was this sort of thing about, if you're in a school and they've got NICADs, get rid of them, because NICADs are great, they're rechargeable, but if you short them, the batteries have a tendency to explode.
Yep.
And kids have a tendency to short batteries. So there were literally batteries kind of getting stupidly hot in schools, or even kind of potentially exploding because kids were shorting them. So basically, there's an organisation in the UK called CLEAPS, or CLEAPS. Some people call them CLEAPS, some people call them CLEAPS, and they basically send a thing around to schools saying, NICAD batteries, do not use them, get rid of them. They should not be used, certainly with students, in any way whatsoever. Just absolutely don't have them. So schools went back to using disposable batteries, and still do.
Okay, I'll just put this out here. You've talked a lot about different physics things that you did that were very dangerous. Yeah. And I remember being in chemistry class and having access to dangerous chemicals. But you know what they did is they taught me how to use them correctly. And instead of taking them away, they should have taught people to not short out the NICAD batteries because they can explode.
This is true, but if you've ever encountered a teenage boy and said to them, don't do this thing because this goes bang, the second you then go, they do the thing.
Darwin appears, and it's all good, and it takes out.
Yeah, apparently,
devil appears on the shoulder.
Yeah, apparently parents and the government don't like the whole kind of, they died, that's Darwinism in action approach to kind of risk assessment, which I think in some ways maybe is a perhaps not necessarily the best way forward for the future of our species, but that could be another.
That's a whole nother episode. But you have other. The only thing that just doesn't make any sense. You have other dangerous things. Like I get,
dangerous things.
Don't put them around your babies because, they don't have any self-control. Whatever you take, 100% baby control, done. But when you're talking about high school students and you already have things that are dangerous,
I mean, a lot of the high school students are driven to school in a car, which is arguably one of the most dangerous things in our modern society that we just forget is dangerous.
Did you know that every single person that has ever lived used dihydrogen monoxide?
I know. I did.
And they've all died. Every single one. They put it in our food.
Yeah.
I heard some people bathe in it, and they also died.
Exactly. And did you know it's one of the major components of acid rain?
Did you know it's also the major component of beer?
Also often used by athletes for doping.
It is. Yeah. Performance enhancing drug. I actually did that. I took a DHMO petition around my college just to sort of see how many of my college lecturers would sign the banning of dihydrogen monoxide. And one of my IT ones, she's a former science teacher, and she basically looked through it, read it, just burst out laughing and went, "That's fantastic." Turning the thing over to see all the signatures of her colleagues and went,
As far as I know, the website dhmo.org is still
going, yeah.
Which is a HTML website, if I remember correctly. It's been around for since before I started teaching. Yeah,
for all of the people in the pre-show that heard us discussing HTML-based websites that were coded in Notepad.
I will. I'll link it. I'll link it into the show notes. Yeah.
It's like I remember they did something where they went around and talked about women's suffrage. Do you want to end women's suffrage? And they got people all over the streets just signing up, ending women's suffrage. Which, for anyone who doesn't know, suffrage is the right to vote. So they wanted to end women's right to vote. I was like, what is happening here?
It's all of the phrasing, isn't it?
Of course.
It's the same thing with the DHMO stuff. You phrase it in such a way that you appeal to people's underlying, concerns to not be embarrassed or to not ask the question just in case they come across as stupid or, things like that. It's only when you get those people that just sort of take a moment and think about what you're actually telling them or asking them of them.
You know what? If somebody came up to me on the street and said, "Would you like to sign a petition to end women's suffrage?" One, they wouldn't be able to talk to me because I got headphones, glasses, mask, and a hat on, so I just walk away. But two, I'd probably just sign it to get them to walk away, because I just wouldn't.
Stop speaking to me. I don't like people.
Right? Yes, I'll sign anything. Just go
Sign
away.
it. See Darwin. Yeah. I mean, it's good to go going back. You talk about sort of kid. One of the problems is that some kids are just not very nice. There was a situation in a school in a city I used to teach in, where a student managed to obtain out of one of the cupboards in the chemistry lab quite a large quantity of crystalline hydrous copper sulfate, so blue copper sulfate crystals. He then proceeded to give it to other students and explaining that it was sherbet.
Oh no!
Which it isn't.
No, it really isn't.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
You know what? I'll take some. I'll try it.
Well, and that's what a number of them did before they wound up in hospital. Yeah, not good for them.
I know.
Although good for getting rid of fungus on goldfish.
Do you have to tell the goldfish that it's sherbet and hope that they eat it?
I think he just dropped it in the water.
Okay. No, an old mate of mine was telling me he'd. I don't know actually how true the thing is. It's years ago he told me, and years before that it apparently happened. But crystallized iodine can be quite sound and vibration reactive and pops apparently. And he'd apparently got some.
You need iodine not on its own. You have to react it with a certain other chemical, and if you react it with that certain other chemical, you do make a very interesting compound that can spontaneously explode.
Yeah, that might have been the bit he'd left out then, but he'd apparently put some by the fire exits and then pulled the fire alarm and sort of stepped back and waited till everyone came rushing over towards it, and then the mat started popping and banging and
puffs of purple smoke as the iodine was released from the compound. Yeah,
apparently that had earned him a week off school, that one.
I have a story about that. I don't know if I should tell it. Maybe I'll have to keep that for the after show. Yeah. A significantly more dangerous version of it. Yeah. Yeah, I'll keep that for the after show, because I don't know if the people responsible. Actually, the place that it was done is now a flat piece of concrete. So, after show. Yeah, remind me in the after show.
Well, just don't use names or locations.
Yes, but people can track where I worked through things like LinkedIn, because I've been on LinkedIn. So
I know.
I can't remember if the place I would be referring to might be on my LinkedIn. I can't remember now. I don't want to have to go and check. Anyway, it can add to the mystery of it. People can be going, "Oh, I wonder what that was." Jamie, you're muted still.
Oh, god damn it! Muting to type, and then I completely forgot. Yeah, I'm trying to think. There was another old story of a tuning fork on a large plate glass window, and then a signal generator and a loudspeaker to make it go off when someone stepped on a pressure switch. Apparently, I earned them another. The resonance to smash the window as soon as the teacher walked in through the door.
Okay, that's quite clever, really.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how good it was for his education, but it's. I think certainly.
Well, he obviously knew quite a bit of physics. If you're using a, if you set up a signal generator to then use resonance. In fact, I'm trying to work out how.
I think it was a tuning fork. It might have just been to record it, or whatever the hell it was. It was a pressure switch, a speaker, and something involved in the resonance of the window. But again, I think that was another week off that he got from school then. Yeah,
I guess you could use a tuning fork to find the resonant frequency of the window, and then just send a large enough, on sufficiently high amplitude signal of the same frequency, and the window, would break.
Yeah, I mean the guide, he had a bit of a penchant for making loud noises. He had a fairly significant audio setup in his very small bedroom, and then had one of his neighbours kind of open up his bedroom door at one point. What bloody hell are you doing in my house? He said, well, the problem was I've been ringing the bell for the last half an hour to try and get your attention, but I couldn't hear the bell going from downstairs because your music was too loud. I just didn't want to ring the police, so I thought I'd just wander in and ask you to turn it down.
That's a much nicer way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so much. My old neighbor used to just ring the police. Or the worst was she used to bang on the wall. And I'd yell to her, "There's no door on this side. Is there a door on your side? Because there's no door on my side of the wall." And then the police would show up, and I don't know why.
I bet they knew where the door was, yeah.
Well, they could just make their own, can't they?
She was the same neighbor that one time caught her barbecue on fire. Because she had like a little travel barbecue. That was like, instead of having a real barbecue, she had a little travel barbecue. Had a nice little cover and everything. She put it on her table. She did up the little propane bottle, lit it up, and it didn't light up. She tried again. I was watching this because I was outside smoking at the time. Then she just went, guess it didn't light. Put the cover back on and left.
Oh, no.
Went inside. Didn't turn off the thing. Didn't turn it off. Didn't unscrew the bottle. Left it on. Put the cover back on. And she also didn't answer her doorbell. Because she went... Eventually I found out, so like, I didn't want, like, this was like a townhouse, so that it wasn't a flat. But so she didn't answer her doorbell. Because she went, well, I thought it might be, like, solicitors. And I was like, no, your barbecue's on fire in your backyard. So I had to hop the fence, go into her lawn, take off the propane, put out the fire. And I was like, well, you could have just answered your door and this would have been all cleared up. She never actually called the police on me after that. So I guess that was my good deed.
Yeah, you managed to show you were still a good human.
I was going to say, what solicitors was she expecting? Was it because of her knocking on your wall?
No.
Perhaps the different type of solicitation, Andy.
Yeah. Like, solicitors are just people who like go door to door trying to...
right. I'm thinking, a solicitor
over
in the
here
UK is essentially like a lawyer. Yeah.
Right. So we put up signs that say no solicitors. And I always thought it was funny because I grew up understanding that word meant lawyer. And I was like, why the hell are lawyers going door to door? But there's obviously more than one. It's a double entendre.
Well, triple.
No solicitation. Yeah.
I was going to say that the triple way would be the prostitutes would be the other type of solicitors.
That's just one type of door to door. That's all it is.
That's bed to bed, not door to door.
They have to come in somehow. There's no teleportation.
I'm working on that though.
Okay. just for prostitutes though. No one else. That is your only reason.
It's the driving force behind it. Yeah.
Well, okay, that makes sense.
to be able to just make a quick getaway, just as the bedroom door is like, you're all right in there. Quick, get in the teleporter.
Okay, but would you, if you had a teleporter, would you put it in your closet or under your bed?
Oh, I mean, if
This
this
is
is
something
something
like-
for that use, then in the closet would probably make more sense because you could then get the person to walk into it rather than having to get them to crawl under the bed.
Right. But if it was in your closet, there's more likely someone would find it.
True.
Right? Like if you're trying to hide it from some...
Or if it got used, your clothes would disappear at the same time.
Right. And if it
Where
was
all
under
your
the
clothes
bed, if it was under the bed, all you'd lose is a bunch of dust bunnies. Right?
Yeah.
It would actually be nice. Cleaning would be a snap.
But the monsters might come in then.
Well,
You
this
don't
is
want
how
the
it all
monsters
starts.
accidentally
Monsters,
being
Inc.
teleported back to
Yeah.
the brothel.
All right. Well, I think we've gone down that one as far as we can.
I don't know. I was just going to say, when I first started dating my wife, the flat she lived in was in an area of the town that was known for kind of people hanging around on street corners. And
So I've completely just derailed and missed the beginning of that, Andy. Just the perfect timing for nearly taking Grant out.
Well, it's like we're talking about prostitutes, and then Andy's just
Yeah.
like, when I first met my wife.
she was not a prostitute. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
But there was the flat that she had. There was a prostitute that used the kind of the wall outside. She had a drive. There was a drive, but the sort of the corner of her drive was a regular haunt for one particular prostitute. It was, I don't know how it worked. They probably had you can have this section of the road and somebody else had another section or whatever. I don't know. So kind of the first time I was sort of driving to kind of sort of see my wife of an evening in sort of the dark, I was sort of driving and slowing down, and this prostitute sort of got up off the wall, started strutting round. It was like, and then I kind of pulled in on the drive, and she's like, oh, right, okay. And the next time, a few days later, it was like pulled up again. She got up, and then after about the third or fourth time, it's like, right, it's him again, and that kind of silver Fiesta. It won't be him then.
He never pays.
It's like, yeah.
Still paying for it now, though.
It's a Fiesta, Ford Fiesta.
Ford Fiesta, yeah.
We had those. We didn't have KAs or KAs. What do you guys call them? Is it a KA or a KA?
I call it the car.
atrocious.
Yeah,
Atrocious.
completely
I like it.
atrocious. Yeah, they're not good cars. Yeah, the Fiesta was a good car though. Yeah, mine was a Gear.
they
Got
had
60
it
miles to the gallon on the run. It was a good car.
I mean,
If
you
you're-
could Flintstones it for 60 miles to the gallon on a Fiesta.
Yeah.
Push your feet through the floor pan.
If all you're concerned about is fuel efficiency, then I'm sure it's a great car.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite old.
I mean,
It's a long time ago as well. Anyway, that's 20 odd years ago, and it was old when I had it.
when the KA, for instance, I'd call it a KA, but they're fantastic to still look like a KA on the outside, but if you brake too suddenly, they'll disconnect the top half from the bottom half.
Oh, nice.
They just absolute rust buckets, and they just rust around the sills, so that if you try and jack one of them up, the body will stay where it is, and the whole chassis will just go crunch inside.
Nice. That's the type of car I like.
They're horrific.
Yeah. Oh, I've had some clunkers in my time, but
You are a car guy, aren't you? I mean, your cars are one of your things, aren't they?
well, yeah.
I mean,
you
there's
can see
a BMW grill in the back there.
Yeah. There's a BMW light fixture right behind me. I would say I am a car guy. I've kind of gotten out of it as I've gotten needing more function over form. Which I now have a minivan. The minivan, by the way, is ridiculous. So at the end of the trip, I ended up spending a night at my brother's house because he lives just outside of Toronto, so like an hour away from Morley instead of driving 4 hours. My wife came and met me with the minivan, and he gave me a 60-inch TV, a dresser, a four drawer tall dresser, a fireplace because mine is just had reached the end like an outdoor fireplace, and a whole bunch of other like books and stuff for my son. It all fit in there, no problem. There's more room. We could have put more stuff in there. Like, this is the ridiculousness of it. So
what type of minivan is it?
It's a Chrysler Town and Country. I doubt you guys have like a Dodge Caravan or Chrysler Town and Country over there.
No, we do get a couple of Chrysler ones, but they'll be, you could park them in the back of the proper American ones, I think.
Yeah, occasionally I've seen a few Chryslers.
So I think we get the Voyager, which is...
Yes, that's the one. I was trying to remember the name.
So we had a Voyager here. I don't know if it's the same Voyager, but we had a Plymouth Voyager. So Plymouth was like... So you could at one time you could get Plymouth, Dodge, and Chrysler. The Chrysler was like the leather, every option version. The Dodge was the mid-level, and the Plymouth was only available in Canada, and it was the nothing version. It was the like
Vinyl
cranking
seats.
Vinyl would be
Cloth.
an upgrade. Cloth
seats.
Cloth seats, cranking up the windows.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Dave says, I got the Cadillac of minivans. I basically do. I have leather seats, heated. I got all the doors open with touches of buttons. I have keyless entry. I just keep the key in my pocket. I love it. I walk up to the car, it unlocks for me. It's great.
Nice.
Yeah. But
mine, you just got to kick it in the right spot for the door to open. And
right. So my BMW that is based off this light fixture, the nice thing about it is that the locks don't work. So you don't have to worry about the key.
Exactly. So I had that one. Well, it was actually my first car. The key for the driver's side, because there was no button or anything. It was all you had to lock and unlock with the keys. And the key for the driver's side was different to the key for the ignition, passenger, and the boot. So someone had obviously done the driver's door in at some point. So because of that, I could just never be bothered locking the car because I just grabbed the one key then, rather than having to have the two separate keys.
Yep.
So I just grabbed the one key for the ignition just to save swapping around. So I never bothered locking the driver's side. And I parked up outside my ex, where her mum lived. It's a bit of a rough area up in the northwest of England, and parked there. It was in there maybe half an hour, something like that. Came back out, sat in the car, and closed the door, and it sounded different when I closed it. That's the wrong clunk. Weird. I sort of looked up, and I could see out through the door. So someone had come along, hadn't actually bothered to try the lock. They just bent the door open to get the coat hanger in to undo the lock. So they bent that out, got in after realising it was already unlocked. Couldn't break the steering lock or anything, so just bent the steering wheel forwards and then got out. There was nothing in the car to take, and they couldn't drive it away. They couldn't do anything with it. So I just basically pulled the steering wheel back straight. Pulled the door back straight and then drove off.
Isn't it so frustrating, though, that you leave your car unlocked exactly for that doesn't happen?
Yeah.
And
I'm just happy they didn't smash the window.
Right. Well, that's like, I drive a convertible. It's, if you want into it, you reach your hand into it. Like, like you can reach around, no problem. You could, like, it's not watertight. Right, it's not watertight, so you could definitely reach if you wanted to. So
but
I don't know.
Do you have that same anti-tamper or anti-theft feature in the BMW as would work perfectly in the US of it being a manual transmission?
Yes.
Or is it enough?
Yes. Yeah, that's the only thing.
No one's going to steal it anyway, are they?
No, they won't know how to. No, they will, and they won't get very far.
There's an old story over here in the UK for it was a car rental company who'd had someone come in to rent one of their cars, and they brought it back after about half an hour, saying that it was just undrivable. It was really, really jerky, and engine was absolutely screaming. It wouldn't go above 30 mile an hour. So they brought it back, and the company replaced the car for them. And then sure enough, this person drove out and same thing, just almost turned straight back around and put the car back in. And it wasn't until the salesperson got in the car with them that they discovered that they'd only ever driven automatics, didn't know there was such a thing as manual transmission, and would basically just go crunch straight into first gear and then hit the accelerator. So the engine's just screaming at 30 miles an hour, and they're just quite happily driving around, wondering why it's not going any quicker.
They needed to get a Corvette, because I had a manual Corvette with a 6-speed transmission, but first gear would get you to 100.
Crikey.
For the motorcyclists in the group, the Ducatis are renowned for that as well.
Yeah, I don't know what do you need more than like 2 gears for, right? Like it was insane.
So
it had better
6
gas
miles per gallon. Yeah.
Right, it had better gas mileage because you'd go into gear on like going 100 or 120 kilometers per hour. I don't know. You guys use miles, right?
Yeah.
That's weird. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't want to talk about it, but it doesn't make any sense to me. Or you guys like have almost made it, and I think that's what you guys are the reason America doesn't change.
Well, no, because we'll quite happily go and buy a liter of something or measure something in millimeters or centimeters or meters, but then I'm 6'1" tall. But
right. I'm 5'8". I get you on that.
Yeah. But we don't measure people in metric. We measure people's height
and weight. Yeah.
But annoyingly no, because we don't measure our people weight in pounds.
You do it in stone.
In stone,
we keep getting even older.
No one seems to know it.
No, anytime somebody says stone, I'm like, that is such a stupid way of measuring it. Because it's such a small number. Like, your number is too small. Like,
so I've got
12 stone sounds better than 168 pounds.
No, it doesn't. 12 stone sounds like a lot. 168 sounds like you're doing a good job. 12 stone, I don't know. I found 12 stone. I'm like, I don't think I could lift up 12 stones. But I think I could lift up 168.
A South African mate of mine has a rant at me every time I mention anything about stones. He just goes off onto like this 10-minute rant about, well, how big are the stones? What are they made of? How heavy are each stone?
Right. That's the same inch and feet, right? Inch was like the size of a thumb, and feet was the size of a foot. So what I like is my foot with a shoe on. Most shoes that I wear are exactly 1 foot.
Well, it was the length of the king's foot, wasn't it? That's why it used to always change as well.
It's just the crazy part that America's like, I'm going to hold on to this system that measured things based on the length of a king.
Yeah. But yeah, not even the same king's foot anymore.
Well,
the crazy thing,
you guys haven't had a king for a long time, so
true.
But neither have I.
Yeah,
it was a French king foot.
Right.
But yeah, the crazy thing with Veritasium did a video about this, about how America's imperial system is based on a metric standard. So they've redefined the imperial system to match metric definitions of units. So it's still based on ISO standard measurements from France, but then just converted to an imperial equivalent.
That's why there's
ballpark.
There's 3 different tons. There's a metric ton, an imperial ton, and a standard ton. And I just go, what? I always thought there was imperial and metric, and then it's the same. There's 3 different ways there's 2 different ways of measuring miles per gallon, because there's an imperial gallon and a standard gallon.
Mm-hmm.
And so car advertisements in Canada will do the liters per 100 kilometers, which I think is a stupid way of doing it, but whatever. Because I've never gone exactly 100 kilometers. I want to know.
It's the reverse, isn't it? It's the number of it's the amount of fluid used over a set distance,
to cover distance,
as opposed to the amount of distance you use for a set volume of fluid.
Right, but I buy it
the reverse.
I buy it in amounts of fluid, so I want to know how many fluids I need to get somewhere. I don't need to know how many kilometers I get with the amount I bought. I want to anyways. I think it's miles per gallon is the way I've always understood it. That's how it works in my head. I'm sure there's people who make liters per 100 kilometers. It works perfectly good for them. But I was looking at I was at one point going to buy a new car. I didn't end up doing it because new cars are a waste of money. But I was looking at the Dodge Dart and it had this stupid number for miles per gallon because I'd been looking at miles per gallon on the internet and it was giving me all the US numbers. And then this Dodge Dart commercial showed like 50 miles per gallon. I was like, that's insane for like a, good sized sedan. Turns out they were giving me the like imperial miles per gallon.
So it's actually like smaller, aren't they?
Yeah, so it's actually like 39.
Bigger. Yeah,
39 miles per gallon. I was like, that's false advertising, but it's not false advertising because apparently it's not. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's where you get like, like Americans having a reputation over here as being lightweights for drinking.
Right.
The beer strength is exactly the same, pretty much. In ABV, which is what we measure it in over here, whereas proof tends to be in the States. It's, the compared equivalent is about the same for beer strength, but our pints are bigger. So if an American person comes over here and is used to having 4 pints of beer and not being drunk, and then they come over here and have 4 pints of beer and they've actually had 4.5, nearly 5 pints of beer.
So come to Canada where it is when you don't
in the half liter.
No, it's even more screwed up than that. You order a pint and you don't know. They don't have to tell you whether or not that pint's 16 ounces or 20. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
Right? Or 18, which is another number that's just made up to be a pint of beer. But in America, they measure their alcohol not by volume.
No,
so it's not
the proof strength, isn't it? So it's double what the ABV is.
No, so that proof is only for like spirits. But
course,
their beer is not alcohol per volume; it's something else. So it makes the number lower, even though the alcohol is the same. Still tastes like crap, but the alcohol isn't actually as it's not as lightweight as everyone thinks. It's just the number is measured differently.
But I mean, I suppose that the other equivalent to provide balance and at least so that we do love our American cousins. We're not just ragging on Americans tonight, although it seems like that. Our perception of Napoleon being a short ass, that again is those definitions of imperial measurements, of the fact that it was the foot at the time was 2 different sizes whether you were in Britain or France. So being a set height in feet by our length of foot would have made him super tiny. So that's why we've now, us Brits have been ingrained since school age of having this idea of Frenchmen being tiny and all that kind of stuff. It's like, again, it's that discrepancy in a measurement unit not being a standardized unit.
So Napoleon was actually just quite normal sized.
So
bloke.
I think he's the same height as me, but
yeah, it's
100 years ago I was average height. I'm now short.
He was about average, if not slightly above average for the time.
So history, metrology, we're covering quite a range of things this evening.
Yeah, and it's okay. Lindsay's just given us a pass for ragging on Americans tonight.
Yeah, but Lindsay is an engineer, and NASA grade engineer. So I think NASA have,
Did Lindsay
mostly
work for NASA?
Yeah.
According to your episode, she didn't, which I loved, by the way. Thank you for not.
Well, we figure Lindsay gets enough of the same questions all the time.
Exactly. Well, and you guys don't even ask questions, so I don't know. I don't know how you could have.
Yeah, we don't
brought that up.
We don't really do the interview style, do we? I think one person we've kind of said, right, tell us about yourself in the way that might be on another one. Yeah. But apart from that, we literally just waffle. It's far more enjoyable.
Well, honestly, it's as if you guys designed it that way.
It's 3 mates having a natter, getting to know each other.
Design suggests there's prior thought into it.
I think you had some because you called it Maker's Waffle. And that's as far as you went.
That was only because we already had an existing group called Maker's Waffle in WhatsApp that we just We couldn't be bothered thinking up another name, so we just thought, oh, we'll just use a name we already know. It saves us trying to think up something new. We just very lazily, we just happen, and then Andy hits record. You know.
Yeah, this is one of the laziest podcasts out there. It's we're not ashamed to say
that, but you are one of the people, Andy, that actually does the most research probably on any guest. You've probably watched every video of every guest that's ever been on and listened to all of their podcasts. And whether or not you were paying attention at the time or not, that's a different story. But they were on in the background. You were wishing the wrong Jacobs happy birthday, but other than that,
easily happens.
Andy is always there. He's always listening. He's just not always in the right time.
Yeah,
right.
You know, that birthday message was perfectly legitimate, just on the wrong day.
Yeah, easy mistake to make.
I mean, when you're when you're existing simultaneously in all timelines at the same time, it takes a lot of brain power to pick the right time frame and the right timeline to drop the messages in. And Andy is completely omniscient.
I am just watching Spider-Man: Far From Home. And they just introduced the concept of the multiverse, which obviously I saw from Spider-Man's, the animated multiverse one. So Andy is Mysterio. I don't know. I'm only halfway through. Is Mysterio a bad guy? Is he a good guy? I don't know. It's because we have a book.
Well, if you're only halfway through, we're not going to say. That would be spoilers.
Well, this is where we have a book that is all the Marvel heroes and supervillains, and it's a little 5-minute stories for my son. And Mysterio, I'm pretty sure in the book is a villain, and I'm halfway through this. I'm like, this guy is the best. I'm like, they're setting me up. They're totally setting me up for something here.
Well, it's the MCU, isn't it? It's always a rug pull moment. There's always one in there.
Twists and turns. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm looking for. I want to see 10 Rings. I was
Shang-Chi.
met up with my sister-in-law and her wife yesterday, and they'd just seen 10 Rings, and apparently very good, very good.
That does not surprise me. I saw a thing the other day. It's the first proper release during or post COVID stuff that's broken the $200 million bracket. Yeah, it's I am also looking forward to it, but not enough to actually venture out into the outer net and deal with people.
See, I'm tempted by, because there's 3 good films around at the moment. I'm not sure if the one's out in the UK yet, because there's the new Bond film which has just come out, and I've seen I can't remember the last time. Well,
I'm a little bit behind on the Bond films.
Bond films, we've seen every one since my wife and I have been together. We've seen every Bond film that's come out in the cinema. But when I discussed actually possibly going to see the new one, she said, "Yeah, but don't forget, in the last one, I burst out laughing when the Aston Martin crashed, and kind of it was like everyone else in the cinema, particularly all the men in the cinema, were going, 'Oh no!' And she was completely laughing. So she said, maybe Bond films aren't for me anymore," which might be true. So I might have to see if I can sneak out and watch that one by myself. And then of course there's June. I'm not sure if that's out yet in the UK. I know it's been out in Europe.
Don't know.
But I really want to see that because that looks spectacular.
I'm trying to think whether. What's the last Bond one I've seen?
GoldenEye. No.
Well, I mean that's I think that's probably one of my favourites. Just mostly for when I saw it, but
and the N64 game, yeah,
exactly, yeah. Got that on release, but I've definitely seen a Daniel Craig one, but I don't know whether I've seen more than one. Might have only been Casino Royale.
Yeah,
maybe.
That's the one I recall. And I think there was I think there was another one that I watched, but it might have just been a different Daniel Craig movie. Like,
yeah, could be any of them.
right. It's like when I see Pierce Brosnan and I go, "Is this a Bond movie?" Like, I guess nobody flips through channels anymore, but I remember flipping through channels, and you're like, "Oh, I know that actor. Let me see what this movie is." But you don't flip through channels. I don't know how people find new stuff anymore, other than algorithms serve it up to them.
I think that's it, pretty much. Yeah.
I don't like it. I hate it. They're the reasons that 156,000 people are watching a stupid video I made.
I mean, the downside, of course, is that if you've got anyone who, like, we've got my wife and I and my daughter have all got separate profiles on Netflix, but we've got a communal TV that we watch as a family downstairs. So, of course, it generally just ends up being whoever's profile was on last. Right. So, next thing, my Netflix algorithm, if I open the Netflix app up, it's all sorts of crap comes up there.
Yep. So I share mine with my wife, and it's the same. And I tried to curate the stuff I wanted. So I would go through, and if I've already seen it, but I didn't want to watch it on Netflix, I would add it to my watch later, even though that's how I used my watch later, was not things I actually wanted to watch later, it's things I already seen. I was trying to game the algorithm. Then she'd go and watch, like, I don't know,
Downton Abbey.
I would watch that over some of the stuff she's watched, but but it would just be completely like, it would be like zombie film, and then it would be like soap opera basically, and then I'm sure she doesn't watch soap operas. But
so what zombie films does she like to watch then?
She'll watch them all with me. That's the other thing is, like, I can't watch anything by myself because she wants to watch it with me.
Yeah.
Except for there was like, what was that zombie? It was like a full-on series, like not Zombieland.
Walking Dead?
Z Nation. So we watched like 3 seasons of that together, and then she said, "You can watch the rest by yourself." And I went, "Okay, finally a show I can watch." And I went, "I agree, it got worse and worse, but."
Well, so we used to do that. We used to watch, things like Daredevil and Jessica Jones and all those kind of things. We'd watch those together, and a couple of other things were the things that we would watch as a couple. But then my wife started working stupidly early shift, so then she's going to bed at like the same sort of time that I put my daughter to bed. So then I get my evenings to do stuff like this. But it meant then that she'd have to watch something, and I'd watch it as well. So then it's like doubling up. So we can't then use the same profile, because then,
right,
you might skip ahead or stuff like that. So we're just like completely out of sync with anything that we're watching. It's just terrible.
I'm sorry to hear that. It's very, very frustrating. I've been with you on that because there was something that she didn't think I'd want to watch, and I went, no, I would totally watch, like Shameless. I don't know if you've ever seen that. I would be like totally into that. It's a bunch of like white trash people.
I'm assuming the US version of it, not the UK version.
Is there a UK version?
The UK version was first.
Yeah.
And then they made the US version from it.
Oh, and that's usually how it goes.
I used to work with someone who was in the first series of the UK Shameless. But it's ultra trash.
So I feel like if it's the UK version, it probably only had 2 series, and it ended on a way that you went, I probably could have had one more, but that's it. If it's the US version, it's about 5
series longer
5
than it
years.
should have been.
Yeah, exactly.
Dragged out well past its death. Yeah.
Yes.
We were talking about this recently with Andromeda, which was a TV show, a sci-fi show that I absolutely loved. And it was a concept by Gene Roddenberry, so the guy who did Star Trek, but set in like a completely different style and time frame and all the rest. But still sci-fi, spacey type stuff. And they had this like one overarching story that would kind of persevered throughout these like 4 series, and then they wrapped the 4th series up with everyone dies, the whole sort of story arc is completely wrapped up. This 4-year journey of meandering through this whole thing, through the cosmos, gets to the very end, wraps the series up, credits roll, everything's fantastic. It's like yeah, that was a good ending. Oh wait, they're doing a series 5. Oh, okay. And they literally like everyone was dead. The main protagonist was walk into the light. You know, it was like this whole thing, and then they just sort of like, oh yeah, now it's the Wild West, and they're on this like completely random planet, and then oh look, this person hasn't actually died; they've just been kind of portaled through to here, and this and this, and then it's just like loads of stupid little in jokes, and it was just
if they made jokes, then I'm okay with it. If
Oh,
they tried
yeah,
to play it off as serious, then I'm no.
So it had Kevin Sorbo in it, so the guy who used to play Hercules, who
I remember Andromeda now. Yes.
yeah, don't get me wrong, he as a person is an absolute horrible human being.
I agree.
But at the time when I saw it, it was good fun. There's a point where, you know, in Series 5, they've gone completely way beyond like normal story. They've just every possible thing, you know, like one of the actresses was she had a baby, so she was pregnant for the first half of that series, so they only shot her from the waist up, so there was no her walking around. It was just in computer screens and like all this absolute nonsense, and then they kind of like backpedaled and brought stuff in. And there's a point where they were trying to find some weapons, and they like open this little cupboard up, you know, in his office, and there's a wig and a shield and a sword, and he just kind of like pulls the thing out. It's like all this old Hercules stuff, and he just goes, "Don't ask." It's like completely just took the piss out of themselves the whole way through. But yeah, it just
when it comes to pregnancies in TV shows, I think that's like if I ever see a woman throw up out of the blue, I'm like, she's pregnant, and 90% of the time I'm right. And I just go like, is there not a better way of doing this? Can women not just drink too much? Because that's usually what causes me to throw up, right?
But
like,
there's that whole metric, isn't there? I forget what it. There's a particular thing that they throw at female characters as a test for how well they've been written. You know, like a law of the internet type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I forget what it's called, but it's like a metric that you can take any writing of any female character and put them to this set of rules, and it tells you how, you know, kind of well the character's been written. And 99.9% of them are, you know, it's exactly the same thing of, you know, completely vapid, no substance. They've been written in as the love interest who's ditzy, or, you know, stuff like that, instead of like, you know, strong, intelligent, independent, you know, capable. You know, like none of that seems to be
like people who have agency. Like that would be nice.
Yeah. You know, human beings.
Oh no, they're robots, are they not?
It's like this 50% of the population that just happen to be this one very, you know, like, oh, here's the 25 characters that are hugely diverse in terms of their blokeness, all the bloke tropes. You know, here's the big grizzly dumb action type. Here's the nerdy knows all of the right formulas to use at the right time but can't interact with people. Here's the nerdy one who can interact with people but can't interact with women, or, you know, it's all the bloke tropes, and then just here is the generic woman.
It isn't. It just boggles my mind that it's that bad, and it's getting away. Like, I don't understand how it's been possible this long. But you know what? I'm going to put this out here before we get too far down this. As 3 white men, we probably shouldn't be talking about it.
Oh yeah, totally. We actually we have next week lined up to talk about this.
Yes,
with people who can are better qualified to talk about it.
Yeah,
probably.
Well and truly, yeah.
If you want to talk, I'm part Inuit. I can talk about that, and that's about it. Oh, and I'm only part. I'm like 25% Inuit.
I was gonna say, which bit of you?
Well, you'll have to. That takes me. I can't show you that on this screen. Sorry.
So a grandparent.
My mother's mother.
Fantastic.
Yeah. from Labrador. If anyone wants to go take a look.
Nice dogs.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, totally. I don't even think they're from Labrador. I don't know how they got that name. Because I don't think they do a very good job up in Labrador. I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah, probably not. No.
I suspect it's like a lot of things. They've, if you look at sort of dogs, how they've progressed, changed over the last 100 years, you wouldn't. I mean, like pugs.
Oh God, no.
A pug now and a pug 100 years ago, totally different looking dog.
Yeah,
absolutely. And other sort of breeds, I mean, bulldogs, and I suspect maybe at one
German
point,
shepherds even.
Yeah,
like it's amazing to look at.
A lot of change.
Yeah,
That's definitely another rant I could go down, but I think I shall avoid that one.
That is, I mean, Inuit. I mean, we talk about kind of sort of women. We're going to have, as we said, next week, episode 20 is going to be our first group chat, and in those chats we're hopefully going to try and tackle, not necessarily always, but we're going to try and maybe tackle some more interesting topics with people who are maybe not more interesting, deeper, harder topics, maybe.
Yeah, much heavier topic to deal with. Yeah.
I mean, you could sort of say Inuit. I mean, when I was growing up, it was Eskimos. Mm-hmm. Now, Eskimos, I understand now, is not an appropriate term to use. I think
depends
I read somewhere that maybe, is Inuit even an appropriate term to use? I mean,
depends on who you ask.
Yeah. Well, tell us more about it. I mean, you must be the guy to know. I mean,
with
your work and obviously your heritage.
So, my mother. So I don't know if you guys know a little bit of Canadian history, but in the 60s and 50s, really, because that's when it actually happened to my mother, so we'll go back even further. They tried to get rid of all the indigenous people in Canada, which, British are good at.
We've done that in a few places.
Right. And they weren't as successful, but they tried really hard in Canada. But part of their things they did is they had residential schools. I don't know if you guys have heard about that. I worked helping to resolve those claims because I worked for the federal government here. But once that started winding down, what they started doing is actually, instead of taking them to residential schools to make them white, they literally just stole them and gave them to white families. So my mother was part of this, where how they would do it is they would go up and say, hey, would you like to, this is how it happened to my mother. I don't know how it happened across the board, but they went up to my grandmother and said, would you like government help with your baby? Sign these papers. And she went, government help? I live in Labrador. Government help is always welcome because we literally live on the pin of the head of a needle on whether or not we survive a winter or die. So we take help. Somebody says you want help, we take help. Sign the papers. They took the baby away, gave it to a family looking for to adopt. Mm-hmm. As far as I know, my mother grew up in a great family, but was raised as if we were Danish. I thought I was Polish Danish. Turns out I'm actually Ukrainian Inuit, but that's a whole double problem there. So on my mother's side, the Inuit side, in the 90s, we ended up finding out that she was Inuit. We met the families. We found out the story of what happened. I've been up to Labrador a couple of times. It is a scary country. That's what I'd put it. Like it is not habitable, but people live there. So
yeah.
But in terms of Inuit, so the Labrador Inuit were probably one of the first that were encountered by missionaries. So they've been intermingling with white people longer than the other ones because as much as I think that's not habitable, up north is even less, right? Like up in the Nunavut, Northwest Territories, and the Yukon is even less habitable. So all that to say, I don't know as much about my Inuit heritage as I probably should. I don't know much about my Polish heritage either because apparently it was a lie. That was my.
You were just looking in the wrong country. That was the problem.
Well, and that's just even more crazy is that in reality, where my grandfather was born is now Belarus.
Wow.
But his grandfather moved from Ukraine after World War One to Poland because that was the strong country, to immediately being, taken over or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, so apparently they were Ukrainian. They changed their name so that they wouldn't be discriminated in Poland. He couldn't. When I found out about it when he was in his 90s, he couldn't remember what his original name was because they probably didn't say it very often, understandably. But apparently, so my last name's not actually Alexander. I have a Polish last name. Yeah, but I don't put it out there because one, it's just whenever I like Zabalski, I don't care if anyone knows it. It's not searchable. Like I can't say it and people can spell it. So that's why I didn't put it out there. Like, go find me. It's like, it's like go find me on this YouTube channel and you don't have your custom URL yet. You're like, it's 2 uppercase J, lowercase n, which doesn't even matter, but for some reason people really care. And then it's like a 6PZI3. Just go find me there. Right, so that's the same.
Is this the YouTube URL, or is this just you trying to spell your Polish last name?
It's both. It was both at the same time. So when it comes to Inuit, I don't know much about it. I've tried to learn. My logo, if you see it, is actually the spruce twig. It's from the Labrador flag. Yeah. So that's where I got that from, and then I added the orange. I don't know what the orange is from, but I just like the color. It's one of the political parties here in Canada, and right now I'm okay with them. We'll see how the future goes.
Give them time, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They'll turn out to be all like the rest. All that to say is, I don't know as much about it so I'm not the expert you could ask questions to.
I mean, you know more than us, so by our standards, you are currently an expert.
Right. Okay. So if you want to talk about I'll talk just about Eskimo and why it can or cannot be offensive, and where certain times it is. So we have we had until very, very recently a Canadian football team, in football like American football, but Canadian football, so it's slightly different, but not like your football at all.
So it's still hand egg, not round ball.
Yeah, so we have a Canadian hand egg team that was called the Edmonton Eskimos. And recently they've changed their name. Finally, after a long time of people protesting and a bunch of white people saying, I don't understand why that's offensive. And then they do a poll, and for some reason, the majority of people didn't find it offensive, so they wouldn't change the name. And I went, right.
Surprising, that, isn't it?
There's a small section of where they did find it offensive. You should probably listen to those people because anyways. They'd always be able to find someone who said, I'm not offended and I'm Eskimo.
Yeah.
And then I go, right, and that's fine. But there's other ones who are. Right. Right. So the reason I was offended by Eskimo being in that league is because they would be going up against animals. Right? It's like Hamilton's team's the Tiger Cats. Right? So it's like you'd be pitting my culture, my people against animals. Right. And that's how I always felt was like offensive to me. It's the same for the rest of like baseball has the, other
dehumanizing them, isn't it?
Right. That's what I felt and why I felt it wasn't cool. It had nothing to do with, I don't care about the name. Like, I'm fine with using the E word. I'm problematic with using it on a team. Right. So that's why that to me is offensive. Eskimo to me wasn't offensive. The people in Labrador, the more east you go to a point, it's not offensive. The more west you go, it is. Inuit is somewhere in between. Some people go, that's not our name. Other people say that is completely our name. Depending on, like, it says you can't put there. It's not a single people, and that's the big problem. Like, if you look in England, you have Wales, you have not England. If you look at the United Kingdom, you have Wales, England, Ireland, Scotland, the Isle of Man. You have the Manx,
Cornish,
right?
Yeah,
Cornish.
Yeah.
You have so many different cultures and people, And it's the same way in Canada, and
the
it's
irony
even
is
more.
that of all of those cultures and everything, historically they all hate English.
Right.
But us English are then so arrogant to lump them in with us. But
Right.
it's the same level of like, yeah, but we've just asked every Englishman we know, and they're all fine with it.
Exactly. Yeah, they're all fine with you guys going up in Scotland and taking over. They're all okay. They think they're all savages up in Scotland, right? Like,
but no, we just don't want you English coming in.
Right. So it's a very similar thing that happened in Canada, and the North wasn't really taken over until the 60s because there wasn't anything there, right? And now they talk about like there's the Northwest Passage, so Canada's very interested in the Arctic now, and that started happening in the 60s. So they went up there and they took Inuit. And they literally took them out of their igloos and their dog sled teams and their traditional way of life and said, stop doing that. Start living in houses, you savages. And built them all houses and gave them all houses and gave them all southern houses and said, live here. And then they went all moldy and gross and all this other stuff. And it's just like, when you think about it, they just go, like, everything they've ever done, even till today, they've done it to a detriment, it seems, to those people and cultures. And I don't know where I was going with that, but the term Eskimo to me isn't offensive. To other people it is, so you probably shouldn't use it, right? If you're worried about offending people and you realize that you have the ability to use another word that is more generally accepted, use the other word. I don't know.
Yeah.
I suppose it would be indigenous peoples or something. I suppose it would be
indigenous peoples is good. Some people don't like that term either, but that's a whole nother So,
I suppose ask the person you're speaking to is probably the most sensible option.
Right. Like, unless there's a reason that you needed to refer to someone in a way that you made. That you couldn't tell what they wanted to be called. Like, I don't even understand how you could possibly need to do that for 99% of your interactions. You don't need to tell people what their race is or what their culture is or what their religion is.
Stop giving people labels. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like, other than the labels that they give to themselves and tell you to use.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Absolutely. I mean that goes for just about every group of people. Regardless of whether we're talking, sexuality, gender, race, heritage, whatever, that seems to be a
woodworker,
a common...
maker.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm wearing a Maker's Guild t-shirt at the minute. It's for the generalists.
So last night we were having a conversation on the Makers on Zoom having coffee. And this was the night edition, so it was actually Makers on Zoom having cocktails, and we were talking about the difference between carpenter and woodworker. And then the difference between machinist and metalworker and fabricator or welder, right? Or pipe. And we were just talking about, like, if you say the word metalworker, it's not offensive to someone who welds or fabricates or machines. But if you say that a carpenter is a woodworker, a lot of woodworkers say no, he's a carpenter, right?
Yeah,
like it's a big difference.
I used to work with site lads who were what they referred to as shuttering chippies. And they were not finessed, not fine woodworking, but they could quite happily cut a lump of plywood and wedge it into the shape of a poured slab of concrete, no problem, all day long, efficiently to a price. But ask them to make a cabinet and you won't know which way up it's meant to be, but likewise, you say to a cabinet maker, can you just shutter in that concrete slab that's about to be poured in an hour and a half's time? They'd be like, sorry, an hour and a half? Do you mean day and a half?
Yeah.
It's complete worlds apart, using the same materials and same tools, but complete different way.
I think that could be an interesting chat. In about a month's time, we've got Andy and Tyler from CrossCut Podcast coming on. And Tyler initially trained as a first fix carpenter, I believe. but he's now a fine woodworker. So I think that could be an interesting kind of discussion to kind of have with him about kind of that sort of change, and how he might refer to himself now, or how he might consider those kind of references and those labels.
Yeah, because I think that's the sort of the struggle, I think, isn't it? Is because each one of those terms carries its own weight and its own set of requirements or ethos, maybe.
I think, and I think there's elements to that. And I think certainly on my kind of list of ideas for kind of the kind of group type chats, one day I want to have one about kind of labeling and how we label, and the kind of the whole thing of makers versus woodworkers versus woodturners versus the whole raft of possible different different things that we have, the kind of the whole, how that fits in with kind of YouTube, and how that fits in with our ability to, let's say, maybe communicate and discuss with other people about kind of where we're at. And I mean, there is the whole thing: do we need labels? If you enjoy making it, you're a maker. It doesn't matter what you make. Does it have to be?
Whether it's a sandwich or a cabinet, it's still making something that wasn't there before.
But makers already is a label.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, we had this when Andy and I were at James's wedding last weekend, and it was this.
And for context, I can't remember if we said last time when we discussed. There were 8 of us that were kind of makers. Including James.
Eight of the maker community
from about kind of 60, 70 people that were there.
Yeah. But we were introduced as being, like some of James's friends were, sort of lawyers or doctors or, other sort of quote unquote proper professionals. And then, us makers who, we realised that only Rasmus actually is making professionally. The rest of us make for fun or as a hobby. We've all got day jobs. We're all...
Caro's a professional maker.
True, yeah, true. But, I mean, Caro's profession being more grandiose, I think. I suppose it's the pedestal I put Caro on, I suppose. But, she's incredibly humble and would, diminish her own skills and sort of call herself a maker. But, she's super fancy prop maker. Which I suppose, make her in the title. But
literally in the title.
Yeah. I think I just see Caro as so supremely at the top of the rest of us.
Agreed.
But
her stuff is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it is absolutely. Whereas Rasmus sort of being a blacksmith professionally, but then his hobbies outside of that are dancing, or gaming, or things that are sort of the wrong way round for the rest of us. Yeah. So that kind of weird situation where you've got this group of people who make for fun, but then being introduced as those are the makers. And we had loads of people that were coming up and were very interested and wanted to learn more, and what is this making thing anyway? And it's kind of people are sort of hesitantly walking up to us, like the way you'd walk up to perhaps a scary animal or something like that, very cautiously approaching with crouched posture with a hand out, sort of trying to offer snacks or drinks. It's are you one of the makers? Can I come and talk to you? Can I ask you questions? Are you going to bite? It's this really weird scenario of it's we're just people who dick around with tools and throw stuff together and
occasionally take photographs or video of it. Yeah,
we just hit stuff.
I think when I think about it, it's I don't like labels. I don't like titles. I don't like that kind of stuff. Like my title at work is investigator. I'd say 90% of my job is an investigation. Like that's not what I do for a living, but that's the title because the title gives you the thing that gets you in the door, right? And then it's conflict resolution, it's negotiation, it's that kind of thing. That's what my job is. But an investigator gets people to respond to my emails.
I mean,
so I get why they exist.
Mine says IT manager, and I barely manage.
You barely manage it.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
I don't like titles, but I also get why they exist. I don't like categories. I also get why they exist. It's a lot easier. Like I know when I dump out a bag of Legos, I put them in little categories, right? Like that's how I do it. Like that's how your like a lot of people's minds work by labels and categories because that's I think how we've gotten to this greater, higher level of thinking is by being able to label and categorize something.
Yeah.
The problem is when we apply labels incorrectly and we put them in categories that don't make sense, right? Like if you started pouring out your Lego and all the like 2x6 pieces of Lego, you went, well, those are always red. No matter what.
What I was going to say is, do you group all the bricks by color, or all the bricks by, function or height or shape or set that they came from, or
right? Well, if it's a set that I'm building, I usually try and dump them out and then figure out by. It depends on the color. If it's a multicolored set, I'll dump them out, sort by color, then by thing. But if it's like a gray and black set, well, then it's just by size.
Yeah.
Right? Like we have on the race car team that I work on, we have 2 giant bins of bolts. Small bolt spin, big bolt spin. That's it. That's all it is. That's our bolts. That's our bolt organization. It's random small bolts, random large bolts. And we just try and that's the minimum labeling we give to them.
As long as you've got enough washers, then you can account for any scenario then.
Washers in a separate thing, so yeah, it's okay. And there's never enough washers. I put that out there now.
It's when you start tearing them down to when you've got a long enough bolt that's too thin for the hole, so you've got to then tear like a penny washer and then an M8, then an M6, then an M5 to stick the M4 bolt through, so there's enough clearance because the M4 is long enough. But
when you're on a race team and you need to get the car back out there, you do things like this. Right? Yeah. And if you're lucky,
my colleagues
it holds.
Done that. Yeah. 10 more laps, that's all we need.
Yeah.
And if you're not lucky, you're just doing it again 20 minutes later, hopefully.
Right.
Assuming they haven't crashed.
Just find the next bolt that nearly fits. Stick more washers on it. But talking about the labels on people, and the irony that being, the labels on people especially in terms of job or region or things like that is purely a taxation thing. It's I suppose it's much in the same way that Lego is. We label people so that we can work out how best to tax them or how best to use them for their function. In the same way that you would with categorizing your Lego pieces. It's there's no point in having all the little tiny studs in with all the big plates if you're not going to use them at the same time. If you group them in such a way that you get the high earners or the high taxpayers, it's easier than the.
I think it's more about use, and people are used, and I don't like people shouldn't be used, right? It's not about using people, right? We are not 2x4s. We're people, right? Like, I don't know. That's just maybe I don't know. That's a whole I don't know if we got enough time for this. I don't want to become the new record holder because I also haven't had dinner and I've had quite a few beers, and I could probably go on a nice long G rant about how people shouldn't be used. And if anyone wants to have that conversation, they can call me after dinner
for another time. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, the Lego ones, because I used to do a lot of Lego, and we still have a lot of Lego here, and we ended up sorting it mostly by colour, just out of interest. Yeah, and we've literally got huge tubs full of colours. But then with the little bits, then we'd have little sub tubs, smaller kind of little kind of lunchbox type tubs inside the big tubs with the splits that are so small you don't want to lose them.
Right.
But I love that phrase, sub tubs.
Yeah.
Just to say that, it's just a nice little
bit of alliteration. Yeah. On that note, nope. We are keeping you away from your dinner. So let's start thinking about what's been grabbing your attention this week. And you came in last minute, so you might not have prepared much, but you've listened to most of our shows. You kind of know the idea. So
we've heard the story of the travel.
Yeah.
Right. So in terms of what's been grabbing my attention, I literally watched 3 videos from this weekend already. So I'll shout those people out. Morley's already put out his video, and I actually in September a year ago, I went on a I don't know my tangents. I'm really good at them, but I went on a I know you guys do. That's why I wanted to be a guest on this episode, like this podcast, so bad. I was like, this is my life. When I listen to it, I'm like, that's exactly how I speak. So about a year ago, Morley and I went on a backcountry canoeing trip, and I showed him how to make a spoon, even though he'd already made a spoon, and he showed me how to do some leatherworking. I made a sheath for my carving knife. Anyways, at the end of it, I planned on making 2 videos out of all the footage. I planned on making a video of me making the sheath, 1 video, a second video of like the trip. And trying to take because I'm okay with like putting up on my channel videos that are going to completely bomb because they're not maker related. I'm totally okay with doing that. So that's what I planned on doing. Morley put out his video and he captured the experience so good that I don't think I could make a video that good. So I never ended up putting out the second video of the trip, right? Because he just did such a good job while also integrating the making part of it. And he did the same thing this weekend. He did a really great job of making it feel like you were there. So if you want to check out that feeling of it, it's a great, if you want to learn how to blacksmith a kitchen cleaver, don't watch Morley's video. If you want to get the feeling that you were there with us, go watch his video.
It's good video. Morley is fantastic at making his videos. He's just going strength to strength, and I think possibly in a few more years' time, depending on where he chooses to put his focus, I think this could be really quite big.
It's annoying having really talented friends, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's very frustrating, and especially the ones that drive you back across the border.
Yeah, I know. Being
Why
good
can't
friends
you also
and talented? It's just you've got to be one or the other.
Right? Can you be a talented asshole like everyone else?
Exactly.
So then there's Scott from Dad It Yourself. He put out a video, and it's nice little video showcasing the weekend. I think he even wrote in the Discord that we're in is that Morley's video is like everything he tried his video to be. So I thought that was a really good comment. And then Justin from Bare Naked, he also put out a video, and his is more focused on making the cleaver. So if you're interested more on what he did to make the cleaver and the wood turning aspects of it, that's a really good video. So that's what's been kind of on my grabbing my attention.
So where's your video going to be? You got to put one up.
So I just put a video up today. Yesterday, of my tiny camper build. Another video on my tiny camper build
Your
videos.
Doors.
Yeah, making little cabinet doors. So this is where I wish I'd put out the video first. So then everyone go, well, that was the first video, so it's okay, right? That's what you got to get. If you want to get out the worst video, you put it out first, and you go, well,
before Morley, basically.
Right. I don't know. I was looking over the footage. I put it into my movie editor, and I don't know what I'm gonna do. It's gonna be more. I captured a lot more hammering metal, and that's pretty much all I captured. So what I'm gonna do is probably just take Morley's video, download it, and then just cut pieces out. No.
Just change the logo at the start. You'll be fine.
Right. No, it's great. At the start, he actually put in like the high caliber camp logo, so I don't even have to change that. I just got to put mine on top.
Stick your watermark in the corner.
Right, and then I'm good to go. Just interesting. Anytime he's hammering on the thing, just swap out one frame from mine, and anything else, it's good. I'm in the background of a bunch of the shots anyway, so it's good to go.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
Right. But that's the main thing that's been grabbing my attention. The other thing is I'd like to talk about a book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. It's I'm going through it as a second read, and it's made me think a lot about things. Like I'm reading through it again, and I'm like, I don't remember this stuff, but it's hitting me hard. So why don't I remember it? So I'm probably gonna have to go through a third time and read it, and actually read it. I generally read right before bed, so I know there are pages that get turned that are not in my memory. Right, like
your eyes have read, but your brain hasn't read what your eyes read.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes I don't recognize that until it's like 2 or 3 pages later. I go, what just happened? Right. And other times I recognize it very much earlier and I just go to sleep. So I'm probably going to have to read that again. But I think I really like how it's basically about figuring out what matters to you is the important part of life.
Yeah.
And in whatever it is that you're doing, he presents some very good ways of figuring out what it is that you can, like how to analyze your life to figure out whether or not that is something worthwhile pursuing. Yeah. So
that's on my list to read. I've had that on my radar for quite a while, and part of me is looking forward to it, and the other part of me is worried about what it's going to make me give up, because I know there's so many things in my life that I'm going to go, yeah, maybe I should finally throw that project out, or maybe I should just stop doing that. You know,
I don't think it will. I think it might invigorate you to finish those things. No, I'm not joking. Like I think
that's maybe, the worry, though, isn't it?
Right, but I really feel like it's when I read through it, I go, right, I need to do those things. I need to go and exercise. I don't need to like watch 17 more hours of YouTube, right? Like I don't need to, right? Or if I do, like it's about if that's what you want to do and that makes sense with what you want to do, that's fine. Yeah. It's about figuring out what you want to do.
Well, I mean, I suppose that is kind of linking in with what my stuff is, because this week for me, or this weekend specifically, has been
segue.
Yeah, well, a really, really good segue actually.
Okay,
because I've
I've
actually been doing a fair bit of gaming over this last week and stuff. I was talking to Andy before. I suffer quite badly with my sinuses, and I've been going through starting some new treatments this week to try and tackle some of that. So as part of that kind of like process of, I need to concentrate on, getting better. So I thought, well, what I would do is change a bit of pace and do a bit of self-care and do something that I enjoy doing, which is gaming. So it's entirely Duncan from Little Hobby Shop's fault, because he introduced me to a game called Frostpunk, which is just been hugely dragging my attention, just for it's like this dystopian future past type thing, like steampunk, diesel punk kind of era of being in this like nuclear winter, and it's a city builder type thing, but it is hugely brutal, but incredibly addictive. So it's been a great excuse for me to like actively do something I normally only kind of like allow myself to do as a bit of a treat. It's that sort of, like you say, deciding to do something that
not
brings you a bit of pleasure. And yeah, exactly. It's like I can do something guilt-free because I can tag it into being something I have to do to get better. Instead of trying to work a bit more, I will put attention and focus on this to kind of, it's been entirely Duncan's fault.
My New Year's resolution was to be intentional with my time.
Exactly.
It's not about being productive with my time. It's being, this hour is gaming.
Yeah.
This next 4 hours are gaming. And that's fine. And if I say that, and that's what I do, there's no problem with it.
Yeah.
The problem is I say this hour is for editing videos, and I spend an hour on Hearthstone. I go,
yeah, or you say this next hour is for gaming, and then 4 hours later go, oh, I should be doing something else now.
right. I honestly, when you guys had Ali on Ali, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about like ADHD, and I just went like, that is my life. I can't do anything at all. And
It's the maker syndrome.
But if it wasn't a pandemic, I'd probably go to the doctor and talk to them. But right now, it's probably not the best idea. But I just went like, I can't walk into the garage. Like there's a Malcolm in the Middle episode where the father is like, it just goes off this like crazy tangent and
flicks the light switch on, and then next thing he's changing the oil on the car because of the.
No, it's changing the engine on the car. And I've been there. I've pulled the engine out of my car. And because it was leaking oil, like a little bit of oil. And then all of a sudden, like 2 days later, the engine is exactly like in the thing. And I just go like, there's something wrong with me. But also, I'm okay with that as long as I realize that's how I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't beat myself up because I didn't change the light bulb, right? Like,
I must admit, I would love to. I'd love to go through and speak with speak with everyone who listened to that episode with Ali and then has listened to any of the episodes since, because almost every single person we've had on since we had Ali on,
yes,
has gone. That episode with Ali really kind of resonated with me. And almost every single guest, with the exception of Billy last week, who said, no, I already am ADHD and I already know Ali well enough and all the rest. But everyone else has sort of gone, you know what? That thing that Ali said has really, really hit me. I need to go and speak to someone.
Great.
And I'd love to see.
We were going to have a similar discussion with Shawn.
We were,
in 2017, Shawn did a TEDx talk. Talking about his neurodiversity and the interest he then has in helping other people with sort of neurodiversity, and I would recommend people go and kind of watch that. But we'll talk with like Shawn when we get him on.
Yeah, specifically things like dyslexia, autism, and ADHD being very, very prolific and common for engineering types and maker types and problem solvers. It seems to be very, very closely linked.
I went to school for engineering, so I saw lots of that. But I always think, whenever I look at it, the biggest problem I have is like the DCSM, the manual for diagnosing people. I think it's called the DCSM. It talks about everything in such a negative way when they talk about things like ADHD or autism. It's always the negatives about it. And like they talk about things like focus, unable to focus on things. And I was like, when I'm in people
the hyperfocus is
right. I'm like, it's not that I can't focus. I can't focus on what you want me to at any moment of any day.
And that's where it fits in. And it's that idea, particularly when talking about young people, them not fitting into the way certain people want the education system to work. The education system, as it stands in, I would suggest, most of the kind of Western world, doesn't fit with young people with ADHD, with, dyslexia can be very, very problematic for people wanting to learn. Doesn't fit
if it's not undiagnosed, of course.
Yeah. And even when diagnosed, it can be
Still be a
again,
huge barrier.
and like a lot of things, it's a spectrum. It's not just one thing. There isn't kind of this. I mean, years ago, when I first started teaching, dyslexia was essentially they have difficulty with reading and with writing. That was dyslexia.
Yeah, whereas
it's
so
not.
much
It's
more to
complete spectrum of it now. And
it's you know what it is?
kind of
It's
think,
labeling people and trying to fit everyone into categories, which is what I'm against. So
yeah.
If we could design systems that worked instead of working away, they worked for the people that they're trying to serve, it would be so much better.
Oh,
Right? That's what my job. Like, if anyone knows what an ombudsman is, my job is to try and make sure that people are treated fairly. And that's what I do, is I try and make sure that people get the treatment they need and not the treatment that is everyone gets.
It's equality versus equity, isn't it? It's the equity that people usually need.
Equality is giving everyone the same size box to stand on to try and look over a fence.
Exactly.
Equity is giving people the correct size box so they can all see the match.
Right. Yeah. And in ombudsman's world is removing the fence.
Exactly. It's the justice rather than the equity or equality.
Right. But it's so I think Plato said it was there's nothing more unfair than the equal treatment of unequals.
Yeah, it's very, very true.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we got that down there from gaming. I don't know what.
Jamie, anything else been grabbing your attention, Jamie? You've had Frostpunk.
Yeah, Frostpunk, and I did a bit of Subnautica Below Zero, was pretty good. But I mean, I had a long overdue catch up with my dad. I haven't chatted to him for quite a while, and I had a bit of a natter with him and stuff. But specifically, I need to make a point of shouting out James Hoffman again, because his video this week was just, it had me in stitches. And for those not familiar with James Hoffman, he's a weird coffee person, he calls himself. But he does amazing, super deep dives into really nerdy coffee stuff. But he's worked with some very, 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 very clever people. And he did a video this week on how to make coffee if you don't have the equipment to make coffee. Specifically to be able to make, if you were at home and only had a bag of coffee beans and some rudimentary stuff, could you make coffee? So he decided to try and grind beans by smashing them with a hammer, or using a pestle and mortar, or chopping them up with a knife, or using a pepper mill to grind them.
Pepper mill sounds like the best choice out of all those.
Well,
I'll have to watch the video. Right.
You'll have to say. So this is the thing. So
I'd cut them and then they'd go in the pepper mill. I wouldn't just go straight pepper mill.
Well, exactly. So this is the thing. So he tries the different methods, and then tries a couple of different methods for making a pour over brew from these ground beans, and he's got a wonderful way of explaining things, and he's just very, very, very subtle, a very kind of stereotypically British way about him. But I was doubled over, crying, laughing at a number of points in the video, just for like little bits of humour that just completely caught me off guard. So yeah, I would definitely urge anyone who's into nerdy stuff in any way to just have a watch of that.
Sounds like it'd be a good premise for a Rough Science remake.
Well, exactly that, and he did say towards the end of it, should he do this kind of out in the woods somewhere, trying to do a similar thing.
Does he only make coffee videos? Because I just went to his YouTube channel, and the last 10 videos are coffee. Is he a coffee maker?
Yeah.
Yeah, he part owns a milk company and a coffee company as well.
Oh, okay. I was just like, what?
He was the world barista champion.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, at one point in stuff like it, he does very, very, very in-depth stuff with coffee type things.
Yeah.
So he's done, coffee cakes and like how to make the best coffee cake. So it's a very
I see this.
It's a very cake orientated thing, but with a very strong coffee undertone. So he does a lot of other stuff.
I see
he's coffee focused, but
he's 3D printing coffee stuff.
Yeah.
Literally, that's what it says. 3D printing coffee stuff. I don't know what stuff you're 3D printing for coffee, but I kind of want to find out. I don't have a 3D printer, but I kind of want to find out.
Exactly.
I would have one if I didn't have to spend $1,500 on a trip that should have cost me $200. But
yeah, you could have got a couple of 3D printers for that.
Yeah.
And you can't even. I mean, after that as well, if you wanted to buy a forge and an anvil, and
that's the problem. Yeah,
and a wood lathe, and
but I hear you've got a wood lathe.
I do have my dad said I could have a shopsmith. So I don't know if you guys know what a shopsmith is, but it's like a 5-in-1 tool. Like that's how they were sold. Yes. It's mainly a lathe, but it's also a table saw and a drill press and a horizontal borer and I don't know, can't remember, disc sander or something. I don't know what else it is, and then there's others, like you get other attachments that go off of it. But mainly what it is an adjustable RPM motor. Is what it is, and then you attach things to it. So as the lathe, it's apparently a decent lathe. It's a multi-tool. So if you were production, it sucks. If you're a small shop, it's great, right? But nobody wants to spend time switching. It's like I don't even like switching between my table saw blades to go cross-cut to rip cut, so I just buy a combination, right?
I mean, that's why I've got 4 3D printers set up, just for changing between materials and nozzles. It's easy to just have another machine.
Right. So this is where, but if you didn't have the space for 4, you'd probably buy one that could do it all. Right? It's like why I bought a brad nailer. There was also a stapler, which I shouldn't have done, because instead of making nice small brad nail holes, when I use a brad nailer, it makes the same size holes as if I'm stapling, because the little thing that comes out and goes like this.
Yeah.
Anyways, my dad said I could have it, but I don't have space for that stuff. I don't know. I know, like when I say I don't have space, I know you guys look at this garage that I have and I go, you can still walk in there. You have lots of space. I can't work if I can't move. I can't work. I just can't. It just doesn't work for me. I just don't go in that room, and then it becomes a problem. Then I'm not doing it. So I know better than to accept things that, like, there was a free, like, my table saw is a Craftsman, like 40s, 1950s, something like that. There was a free one, almost the exact same model as mine. I went, I should just get that, use it as my outfit table. Right, and then put a dado stack in it and just never have to change that dado stack again, right? And then I also went, or not, because I'm just not going to do that. Like, I just don't, I know it'll be in the way. I can't easily move it. Like, they weigh a lot of, like, they're not easy to move around. Even on casters, it's annoying, right? So I ended up going, no, it's free, but I'm not going to go get it, even though it's worth $50. Yeah. It's worth at least $50 worth of metal. So I don't know why I didn't go get it and then just take it to the dump, but I didn't. Because I know it would just live in my. Right, it would just live in my garage. It wouldn't move. I know, even if I bought it, got it, and then I would eventually just go, I'm tired of this, and throw it out myself. I went, or I could just leave it there, and I don't have to deal with any of those emotions. Anyway, sorry.
Other than the regret of not getting it.
There's no regret, because I already went through it. The regret's already happened. There's no regret anymore. I'm okay with it. The only regret I have is that I could have just taken it to the dump and gotten money for it. But I know I wouldn't have done it, so it's not regretful.
Well, just think someone else somewhere might be making a cabinet on it.
I have taken aluminum engine blocks and just put them at the curb. Because I couldn't be bothered to go to the place that gives you good money. Like, these are like, a good chunk of aluminum.
Money for an engine block, yeah.
Yeah, right. I have problems, guys. Okay.
I'm totally with you. Sometimes the effort is worth more, than
Right.
what you'd get for it.
But it isn't.
Yeah.
It's totally worth. No, it's not. I don't know. I just
let
don't
somebody
care about
else have
money.
the issue.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The value of your time, versus.
Then I sit on the
hassle
couch and don't do anything. So I don't know what the hell's wrong with me. This is what I don't understand. Like I get if I was busy. Right, I'm actively choosing to do nothing instead of get $75 to go to the dump. I don't know. To drive 15 minutes. I don't know. So broken. But I'll literally spend an hour trying to find a $5 off coupon on something on the internet. But I can't drive an hour and back to make 75. It's okay.
Welcome to the maker community.
Right.
Welcome to neurodiversity.
Yeah.
Talking of like a squirrel, Andy, what's been grabbing your attention at random this week?
Let me have a look at my list. Three things this week. First one, I won't say too much about it. Fools with Tools Treasure Trade 2021. If you know, you know. If you've got from date of recording, you've got 7 days to get signed up. Everyone that's previously taken part has had an email. Yeah, there's a few changes this year. One of which is there is one sign-up deadline. If you don't make the sign-up deadline, you'll just be put on the email list for next year's. So, yep, get in on that.
I'm in.
Good.
You know what's unfortunate, though? I understand the reasonings behind it. But I'm not going to get any more UK stuff this year.
Not this year. Hopefully next year. Yeah, with the postage, after quite a bit of discussion, there were some issues last year.
Yeah.
But it's not nice.
We kind of did some stupid stuff that kind of ruined it for everyone else.
Yeah.
UK versus the rest of the world. This is
right.
Yeah, it's not just that stupid thing that got done for no really good reason other than some very rich people getting even richer.
Sorry, I've
said stay away from that. Another one this week. Just a little bit of a sad one. It's a year this week since Sharon from Figments Made passed away. So a few people have been remembering that, and yeah, if you didn't know Sharon, she was such a lovely, amazing person. But her videos are still up on YouTube. Go and watch them because they're blooming funny. They really are. Just an absolute blessing. But the thing that really caught my eye this week, I can't remember how I came across it. I think it was posted in a group that's kind of a bit more art oriented than making oriented that I'm in, and I've got to read this off because I can't remember it. Claudia Bueno, an installation called Pulse at Mio Wolf in Las Vegas.
Phenomenal.
It's the most amazing art installation that I've ever seen. I'd love to go and see it in person. I'll put the link into the show notes. But essentially, it was a piece of art inspired by the layers of mineral buildup in, I think it might be Yellowstone National Park in kind of hot geysers, and then that was translated onto layers of glass. I think a total of 60 layers of glass. I think they're in blocks of 12. And then those layers of glass stacked together are illuminated individually.
A pane at a time.
Yeah, individually. So the illumination is moving kind of back and forth on the sides of the glass, and the effect on the overall thing is just absolutely phenomenal.
It's almost like a fluid animation, isn't it? But out of not.
It's almost like it brings it alive.
It's
organic. It's completely. The only thing moving is this light source, but the whole thing is just. It's like kind of almost like the ripples you see in deep undersea animals, where the kind of the phosphorescence is rippling across their skin. Say on something like an octopus or something like that, and it is just stunning. Till you put it on a big screen, the biggest screen you can. I'd love to see it with some good music or something like that. It's just phenomenal, really was.
Definitely.
So yeah, I mean that's my kind of big one from this week. It was like, it was one of the. I mostly watch videos at 2x speed just so I can watch more. But this was go back to the start, put it on 1 time. So I'm just going to watch this, which is a rare thing for me.
Do you ever watch things at like half speed?
Only if I'm really trying to work out what's going on. If I'm trying to get, particularly if there's kind of maybe something subtle happening, maybe with magic, or if I'm trying to see a mechanism. There's
a video on Pat Lapp's channel. It's Pat, Paul Jackman, and Brett McAfee. I'll doing something. You need to go watch it at 1/4 speed. Okay.
Just go watch it. By any chance?
Yeah. I think another one.
Yeah. It's an amazing video.
So it's just nice 4 hours, and you can just stretch it out to 12 if you want. It's perfect.
Yeah.
I'll for those who haven't seen it, I have seen it. For those who haven't seen it, I'll link it into the.
There's a surprise in it,
show notes.
But you have to watch it at 1/4 speed to find it. I'm not saying where it's at.
But sort of like YouTube video speeds and things. Andy is very much like a fly or a hummingbird. The life moves so much quicker for Andy that's why he has to speed everything up. I mean, he even sleeps quickly.
Oh, I wish. Yeah.
I'm the same way. I watch all my videos at 2 times as well.
You have to see more. You can fit things in.
You fit in most people. I can't listen to them at 1 time on a YouTube video, and I get it because when I start recording a YouTube video, I speak slower. I go, "Why are you speaking so slow?" I go, "Because everyone's going to turn it up." I go, "Right, I get it."
And the problem with that though is that because I'm very much the same. But then when you get to a situation where you're either watching with someone else, or you're in a meeting, or things like that, and then everyone is talking so
twiddling away,
unbelievably slowly.
Right. This is what I think. There's something wrong with some people that they can't see everyone else's facial expressions. Because I see it happen in Zoom meetings. I'm like, do you not see? Do you see everyone else who's like they're all glassy eyed because you're speaking so slow? Like, I wish I had that problem.
I started a podcast. I saw a post about a podcast that I used to have on my phone. When I changed my phone over, I didn't transfer. It didn't transfer all my subscriptions over. So I had something like 102 different podcast subscriptions, and it only transferred like 3. So I started just kind of fitting in the ones that kind of which ones am I most want to listen to, and I kind of got to about 60 of them. And I saw a post about a podcast that I used to listen to. I thought, I actually want to listen to that episode. So I thought, right, I'll just resubscribe and download it. And I forgot to change the playback speed initially. I was like, this sounds awful. What on earth is going on here? It was like, I got to change the playback speed. Because it's just all podcasts 1.7 times. Unless they're from Scotland. If they're from Scotland, I have to kind of do it 1.25 at tops.
Yeah, I do have that problem with accents. I definitely have I can listen to a lot of people with some accents I can't understand. But you good like Southern United States? Like 2 times isn't fast enough.
Like, a really slow drawl.
At 2 times, I'm like, you sound normal. I need it faster. Like Bruce Aldrich sounds normal at 2 times. Like it's perfect.
I know there's a few kind of one. I've got this kind of dream. One day I'm going to go out to the States and Canada, and I'm going to hopefully like a 4-week trip or something, so I can actually kind of sort of go and visit as many people as possible, because it'll probably be a once in a lifetime trip. And I was kind of like thinking, a few times I thought when I actually meet some of these people, they're going to like, you talk so slowly. How we're going to struggle to communicate because I'm going to fall asleep by the time you finish the sentence.
Well, this is where you end up in those situations where you can have two conversations. If you're in a group setting, you can be sat in between two groups of people and have two simultaneous conversations because everyone else is talking slow enough for you to process what's going on. Or
but I can't. I can't because I've got an auditory processing disorder. Like at the wedding, last weekend, with all the separate noise. Unless there's the conversation I'm trying to focus on is loud enough, the other noise just creates a white noise, and I can't. I just stand there and smile. And
so depending on where I'm at in my head, I can either pick up all the conversations or none of them.
That's exactly. I was just saying, Jamie, I'm the same way. It's either all of the conversations or literally I cannot hear anything at all, and I want to leave. Right? It's like Charlie Brown. Womp 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 womp, and I'm like, and what did you? What? Yes, I'll just take a beer. Just another beer, please. Like what? Like this one. That's. Yeah, I don't know what you're saying, but just bring me another one of these, please.
It's like if we're if there's the TV's on in here and my wife and kids are watching the TV and they start to discuss something that's on the TV, I just go right and I just stick headphones on and start listening to music because I can't watch the TV anymore. And I can't listen to them.
Yep.
Because again, it's I'm taking in so much of it.
But then there's other times where I feel like I am listening to 15 conversations and being part of 15 conversations, which is like the weird part where I go like, sometimes I'm with you, Andy. Sometimes I can't, like two things happening at once make my brain melt. And then other times I feel like I've taken like a drug that is like hyper stimulated my brain to the point where I can do 15 things at once. Yeah. If only I could harness those abilities when I need them, right? Like
or
that would be
working
amazing.
When you've got those abilities going.
Yeah, I think it's. I actually think stuff like that. Have you ever read any of the? You might not have either of you yet. I don't know. Rick Riordan's books. He's a kids writer, kind of not quite young adults, but kind of sort of teenage kids. One set, he's written a few different sets of books, and they're all about kind of these. It's like the gods, the Roman gods, and the Greek gods are real, but it's like modern day, and you get these kids and teenagers that are essentially demigods because they're a human mother or father.
Kind of like Percy Jackson.
Yes, Percy Jackson's the one. Yeah, Percy. I couldn't think of it. So Percy Jackson's one of the things.
Okay.
So it's like they've got a god as one parent and a human as the other parent. So they've got these guys, and all these kids have got ADHD, and it's described. And I believe Rick Riordan's son has severe ADHD, and so he kind of wrote the books initially to kind of give him a story that he could kind of relate to. And so actually ADHD in these books is present in all these kids, but it's a superpower.
Fantastic.
And it's designed for their ability to be able to kind of essentially go into combat against the kind of these monsters, whether it's minotaurs or whatever, these kind of sort of ancient Greek monsters that are still roaming around modern day Earth, and they're going off on quests. And the fact they've got ADHD, they can't read and write very well. They're all dyslexic and whatever. But give them a sword, or depending on which god their parent is. They might be kind of if it's Hephaestus, they're kind of the engineer. So there's one that's like you can make anything from anything, and there's others that are playing with fire, and there's others playing with water. It all depends on whether they're Poseidon's son or whatever. And but they've ADHD. It's a superpower. And I sometimes I wonder actually maybe hope to a certain extent that maybe in the future the neurodiversities that we see so often and we see in the maker community will actually get recognised, and instead of trying to give everyone the same block of education and expect them to fit into the same mould, which they don't, of kind of going, right, well actually it looks like you're really good at this, right. So we'll give you this kind of reading and writing, we'll give you enough to kind of make you functional literacy, but
like
we'll
stat
really
traits on like a skills tree or something as a player character.
Yes. And so we'll really push you towards this.
recognizing them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Recognizing the stat tree and going, right, why am I wasting any more time on your charisma? Because you don't got none. And you're not gonna get none.
I'm not going to worry about charisma. I've got dexterity and intellect. That'll do.
Right. Well, I think that's... I would love to see that, Andy. I think that's... I hope that's the future. I won't say I think that's the future. I hope that's the future.
Utopian dream rather than the dystopian nightmare we're heading towards.
Right.
Well, on that lovely note, then, Grant, where can people find you when they want to come and stalk you on the internet?
Well, they can go to their dystopian nightmare future of their choice and just search for the Grant Alexander. And if they see something orange, it's probably mine.
Or Justin. Yeah.
Well, if they search the Grant Alexander and they find Justin, there's something wrong.
Yeah, I see more the orange, but yeah.
Yeah. But I'm also on the Creating, Living, and Making podcast. I'm a co-host there. We release every Monday. We release at 2:00 in the morning, Eastern Standard Time. And the reason for that is so that when people wake up, it's in their inbox already. It's downloaded on their phone. It has nothing to do with Australian time. It has everything to do with I've thought this one out.
Yep, it's one of my Monday morning listens every week.
Good excuse for it.
Well, yeah, this has been a lot of fun, guys. Thanks for.
Thank you for jumping in at the last minute. Yeah, really, we do appreciate it. We'll get Shawn back in because we really do want to speak to Shawn, and we hope that he's feeling. Hopefully, he's fast asleep by now. It's 20 past midnight here, so hopefully. He's fast asleep, all dosed up with some Vicks and something like that, and ready to do some good filming tomorrow, which we'll see later in the month or next month, because I think they take a bit of time over their editing.
And hopefully it's also got us off the hook for Ruth Hertinger's next week.
Yeah. Although she was going to be on standby and offer some poignant questions every now and again, just to keep things lively.
I didn't know about that.
Well, she could have asked some poignant questions about me, because I'm sure she knows me so well.
Well, hopefully she's been making sure that Shawn is being well looked after and getting as fit as possible for their filming tomorrow. So again, hopefully an early night for her. Right. On that note, I think we should
push the button.
Say goodbye and
goodbye.
Push the button.
Thank you again, Grant, and thank you for whoever's still daft enough to be listening.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you.